few years. There we go.
Take the post-apocalyptic zone of Stalker,
I wish for Adidas tracksuit.
Your wish is granted.
and some open-world goodness from Fallout.
You serve no purpose in life. Your purpose in life is to be in my stream sucking on my daily.
And add a dash of Ukrainian video game development, and you'll get an average day in Eastern Europe, or Metro Exodus. This game was brought to life by 4A Studios, the same developers of the original two games. They actually managed to keep the same gunplay, atmosphere, horror, and of course, immersive open world. Volga, Caspian, spiders, Moscow, Taiga, Novosibirsk. So I'm just curious, how can they use this immersiveness to make a super detailed and interesting world come to life? Well, let's see. Alright, we have returned, playing once more as Artyom, the, of course, main protagonist of the first two games, as well as the books which the franchise is based on. However, the last time we saw Artyom, he was fighting his way out of the bunker of D6 between the Red Line and the Spartans. However, the events that followed kind of led Artyom to seek for a way out of the metro. He has spent several days above ground, walking around with the mutants, having a good old time, but also receiving signals from someone beyond Moscow. So, the game forces us into a short gameplay sequence, and I love the way this game looks. It is exactly the same as Metro 2033 and Last Light, and that's something that's really cool about these games. They definitely feel more immersive by the fact that the gameplay stays consistent from game to game. If you played the first game, second, and third all in a row, they would actually feel all the same in terms of style. All we do down here is avoid a bunch of no solace. Oh wait, actually, fuck no, that's a fucking Watchman. My bad, I fucked this up in the last video. I won't do it again.
Hold on! We'll get you out. Whoa! It's Artyom! Move!
Alright, after getting overrun by a bunch of these guys, we awaken back in Polis with Anna. Ooh, it looks like we're actually married to her this time around. And of course, Colonel Miller is also here with his 10 out of 10 body, 10 out of 10 face, and 0 out of 2 legs. It's pretty clear from the vibe here that they do not like the fact that we've been leaving the safety of the metro and exploring outside.
Back from the brink, but people are giving you their blood, which could save so many wounded, and you keep bringing it back irradiated. Don't you think that is unfair?
Apparently, Artyom actually picked up a signal from the outside at some point, and he's been obsessed with it ever since. But the others don't like him risking his life amongst all the mutants and radiation in hopes of finding anyone. Alright, let me get the hell out of this bed, and an interesting detail is that if we approach the door, we can actually listen in on the conversation taking place between Anna and her dad.
Enough. Artyom this, Artyom that, like a broken record. Had the guys not made it in time, you'd be a widow now. Stop it.
Now, it's clear that both of them disagree on what Anna's future should be with Artyom, but hey, it's not my business, so I'm staying out of it.
Oh, I can't believe my eyes! Artyom, you're alright. You gave us a scare, brother. Artyom, how are you, friend? I see you're alright. This calls for a celebration.
So, after a night of hard liquor, our Eastern European friends got us so fucked up that we have to fast forward about a week. Together with Anna, she doesn't seem the happiest about being out here. She sort of seems to doubt us as much as her father does. Dumb bitch. Walking around the city together is crawling with Watchmen. But in this one moment when they're jumping over us, we can either be a total American and just start blasting, or ignore them. And yo, wait, oh shit, is that a train?
What? Artyom, are you seeing this? I'm not just imagining things, right?
Hey yo, turns out our boy was right all along. However, before I can prove my points, some Hansa boys pick us up, and these guys are one of the largest factions in the metro. This is actually one of the coolest things about the Metro, is the different factions that exist and how you sort of have to interact with them.
Oh, thank God. These people, they're Hansa, not the Order. Assholes. They did a number on you.
Luckily, nepotism is on our side, and Anna will get us out of here without too much trouble. But inside of the truck that we're stuck in, there is an old lady and her son, and both are actually from outside of Moscow.
What village? You're not from Moscow?
Just a regular village. We came here to find the boy's father. Left for Moscow about a year ago and never came back. But then we got caught by these here.
You mean there's life outside?
Why wouldn't there be any?
Except it doesn't matter, because turns out they're just gonna shoot the old lady and the poor kid, and I want to play the hero and catch a fat bullet to the chest. Now, pushing around some of these spooky skeletons, we even find the body belonging to the son and father of the old lady and the boy, who just got shot alongside us. Guess the fella didn't really get far before dying. And that big fat train we saw earlier actually belongs to Hansa. Now, after crawling through some nasty, icky, gooey vents, we make it inside and run into Yermak.
Mutant? Watchman! Human? How did you... Oh my God. It's you she's been screaming about. Alive! You came for her.
Now, this old man has worked as a train engineer way before the nukes dropped on Moscow, and currently he's under the thumb of Hansa. So, with a little bit of help from the old guy, we can make our way all around the place. He distracts them while I tickle them to death. It turns out that if you snap someone's neck, they die. Who would have thought? Now, thanks to Yarmak, we get to Anna just in time to save her from this overgrown Russian officer. Where we also discover something important. We are still at war. Ooh.
Morons! We are at war! One task won't be enough for you now, you idiots! This is the universal broadband radio jammer.
What?
It stops Moscow from hearing anyone, and them from hearing us.
Uh-oh. We also do fuck up a bit. We also destroy a jammer that's apparently been keeping any noise from coming in or going out of Moscow. And it seems that Hansa was given the order of continuing the upkeep of this jammer way after the war ended. But now we have proof. Artyom is the fucking messiah. And next, it's time for a bloodbath. Now, of course, I could have definitely tried going through this section way more quietly, but what am I, a Sims 4 player? Nah, bro, I'm blasting my way through. After committing some genocide, we get onto the train and make our escape. But not before we get knocked out and wake up and are surrounded.
Roger that, base. Over. All right, shoot these two. And as for the engineer...
What do you mean, shoot these two?
Don't you dare give me lip, soldier!
The colonel will give you a piece of his mind now.
Turns out, though, that it's our boys. And after them saving us, we're now stuck in a hot pursuit, as the Hansa are trying to catch up to us. They really aren't too happy about us stealing one of their trains, so how about we steal another one? Or, well, if that's not gonna work, at least we're gonna sneak around and blow theirs up instead.
Don't shoot! Don't shoot! I'm Bruce the Stalker. I'm not with him. They made me. Caspian, come on! They're going to tear us to pieces!
Hold on!
All right, old man, time for you to explain yourself.
Who was telling the truth? Why won't you answer? Who were those people trying to kill us? Why would they shoot at you, the Order's commander? Explain something, at least. You owe us that.
Well, I might as well drop the bomb now. The war did not end.
What do you mean, did not end?
Let me finish. Most of our cities are destroyed. The rest of the country is probably under enemy occupation.
Okay, well, now it's starting to become a bit more clear. According to Miller, he's already known of the outsiders, or people that exist outside of Moscow, but he seems to assume that they are enemy troops, like NATO, the US, or Slovenian weebs. Now, while on board, we can actually listen to a radio signal, and we eventually catch one that's very interesting. It tells of a hidden bunker that's on the way to the Russian mountains, and apparently it contains the remainder of the Russian government, or at least what's left in charge, and these guys are actually known as the Invisible Watchers, and are actually mentioned briefly in Metro 2033 as an urban legend of sorts, like a shadow government that still rules the people of the Metro. Well, turns out that's actually true, and Miller even knew about them. And guess what? We get a brief moment to smoke fat kush with Miller before we get to explore the train. The train is actually a really cool section in the game where you get to have conversations with the others on board and sort of interact with them, learning about their lives and just generally getting a lot of backstory on the characters. An actually cool detail is that if you go outside of the train and look around, the world sort of goes on infinitely, creating this feeling of us genuinely being on the road. But a cool little secret detail you may not know is that our train is not even moving. The actual thing that's moving is that we're actually seeing the map moving and generating new sections automatically. It's a really cool little detail that you wouldn't know unless you use a specific mod that allows you to go all around the game. But it's pretty cool. It gives you an actual, genuine view of the Russian countryside, or at least what it would look like after a nuclear apocalypse. And our next task is pretty set. We gotta get to the Ural Mountains, a journey that will lead us past many treacherous parts, and our first stop along that journey will be the Volga. Based on a real river that runs through the country, and our first pit stop on this journey. So far, you may have noticed the game has kept us pretty much stuck in a linear gameplay loop, but now it finally opens up, and the freedom we looked for is in our hands. Alright, our path is blocked by some really strange people that seem to live on a giant bridge, which is on the other side. So, there seems to be a really fucked up cult in this area, but we want to be dealing with them in a cautious way. So, together with Anna, we go down the hill and enter the village. Everything around us is pretty much decayed, and because I'm not fucking Jesus, I cannot walk on water, so instead we take this boat over to their temple, which is essentially just a church on water. As we close in, I run into this fella, and I'm really hoping he's not Dr. disrespecting that poor little girl.
To the temple and see the light of truth.
Inside, this place is really cult looking. We've got a big fella called Silanthius, and he's just preaching to the masses.
And other sinful lures of the enemy!
You're all evils! You don't save anyone!
Clearly the dude is sketchy, but for now he just locks us in, which is a bit concerning, and we're able to run into Katya and her daughter.
It's him! The man from the train! He's here to save us!
I can't believe this! I had all but lost hope.
Both of them have been kept prisoners here by Silanthius, so we offer them to go to the Aurora to be saved. And now we have to do a little bit of escaping. See, we're stuck on the church, but to get out, we have two options. Either we go guns blazing and kill everything in our path, which, is the easier way to do things. But if you go the safe path of just knocking characters out, you will get better moral points. And this is where the game's morality system comes into play, and I'm gonna be real, I'm not the biggest fan of it. It is pretty interesting because there is a cause and effect to everything you do. Like, if we kill enemies, then later down the line, other enemies are more likely to fight back instead of surrendering. But if we're good and only knock other people out and don't actually kill them, then the future characters we run into or other enemies will just learn that, oh, this guy will not kill us if we surrender. So it's kind of an interesting thing that makes the game feel more immersive, but at times, if you really want to get the good ending, you basically have to do everything in certain areas to be able to get it, to have enough high moral points. So after a quick escape from here, we go onto another boat and try to make it to the shore. Along the way, we run into the shrimp. Now, the shrimps are just these enemy types that have existed since like Last Light, the previous game, which are pretty cool, but you should just not bother wasting your ammo on them because they're just too strong. They have way too high armor and are best avoided. But also, we run into this big fella. is the Starfish, essentially a mutated version of a catfish, and it's the thing that's being worshipped by Silanthius and all of his followers in the Volga. There is some interesting lore behind this big boy, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
A whale? It's fucking huge!
On the shore, we run into none else than our boy Duke. Thanks to him, we learned that Katya and her daughter made it safely to the Aurora, but on top of that, he's just here scouting, so we take this minute to explore the game's crafting system. You see, crafting in Metro Exodus is really interesting. It works again in a very different way than you'd expect. See, if we look at most other games in comparison, crafting is something that you just do and spam very quickly. It doesn't feel necessarily very immersive, but in Metro, everything you do happens in world. When you want to craft, you literally take your backpack off your back, put it on the ground, and start crafting materials. Everything happens in the world, and same thing goes for your actual map. If you pull your map out in Metro Exodus, it genuinely is taped up and looks like a makeshift map that a real human would use in these circumstances. And this is what makes the game feel far more immersive. Like, you genuinely feel like you're in the world, because when your map is out, you're still in the world. Your game doesn't actually pause, like let's say in really any Ubisoft game that you might play, where you have a million waypoints and things telling you where to go. Instead, in Metro, the places you might want to go to for, I guess, side quests are just marked the same way a real person would mark them with a Sharpie. All this does is keep you immersed in the gameplay. It makes it so that you feel like you're genuinely here, and when terrifying moments happen, they genuinely feel terrifying. And when story happens, you feel attached to it. Checking a nearby fallen down airplane, inside we can find a lot of different resources, just ammo and other crafting materials, but also we find some interesting notes and a upgrade for our outfits. One of the notes here that we find nearby is actually by the people that were on the airplane. It turns out these fellas crash landed, and most of them seem to have survived the actual landing, but then eventually were killed off by the monsters that surrounded them in the Volga.
They say any landing you walk away from is good enough. But what about my case? I just can't anymore. Dima, you know I have to try. I am the only one left who can move, and we have to get help. Otherwise, the guys are as good as dead.
And there's loads of cool moments like this if you read the notes all around the map. There are small stories that can be told, and you can visually see through the actual environmental storytelling what has happened in this place.
Here's Artyom back from the abyss of NATO
You're alive!
occupation.
Impressive after the horrors Duke told us about.
Back at the Aurora, Katya and her daughter are here and in the safety of the Spartans. We also learned some new details. It turns out the Aurora is in disrepair, and we kinda need to fix it, but luckily there is a man that's hiding over by the terminal.
A mechanic called Crest is hiding in the port. His help is required if we're to fix the Aurora in the foreseeable future. Yermak can't handle the repairs alone.
His name is Crest, and apparently he can help us fix the train because he is friendly. The another thing that we also notice here is that if we go inside of the train, we can talk to Tokarev, and he'll actually give us a Tikhar. Now, this weapon is really unique because it works on essentially air. You have to pump it, and then it will shoot little pellets. Now, it does less damage than, say, some of your other weapons because the bullets that are made for this are much easier to create. It's something you can craft just in your backpack. You don't even need a crafting bench for this. But here we go. What the game has done now is give us full freedom. Now we can explore the map in whatever order we want to. We've also been told by the fellas that apparently Duke is hiding at some sort of outpost a little bit further up the track. So, as we're exploring, I find a boat. I go out on the water, and guess what? I get attacked by a giant starfish. See, these moments in the game are so interesting because they make you question, is this a scripted event or is this naturally happening? And that's kind of the best feeling you want to get from a game that has an open world setting. You want to be wondering all the time, is this something that was meant to happen specifically, or is this just something that's naturally happening in the world? Exploring one of the hills, we find a giant antenna, as well as our first saving point. Now, these are little huts which people usually stay inside of, and you can find little details about who's been here before. There's even music boxes sometimes, and when you're saving the game, you can actually go between day and night. And this is very important for the gameplay. You see, approaching certain areas of the game will be different based on the time of day. If it's nighttime, then bandits will usually be sleeping, so it's easier to approach their camps. But during the night, though, there will be more monsters lurking around. However, However, during daytime, the monsters might be hiding and less likely to be seen. There's also a strange bunker that's currently locked off, and I mean, the giant fucking like skull clearly tells me I shouldn't go inside, so maybe we should avoid it. For now. Alright, let's try to get to Crest. Let's just walk through this building. Holy shit! Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you the human mutants, or as they're called in Metro Exodus, humanimals, which I think this is something Duke just called them, and that's their actual name for whatever reason, but basically, they're human mutants, or humans that were exposed to less radiation, which just caused them to mutate, as opposed to what happened to, let's say, the Dark Ones, which are also based on humans. These guys are annoying, and they are terrifying throughout the entire game whenever they do make an appearance, though they don't show up in colder areas and only where it's a little bit warmer. Oh shit, I think Crest needs some help. Alright, so we climb up a few stairs and get to the top. Now we're fucking surrounded by humanimals, but it doesn't really matter. Crest gives us some amazing suppressive fire while we wait and eventually climb up to him.
Here.
Now, Crest as a guy is a pretty cool fella. He actually offers us binoculars, but there is an interesting interaction here. If we don't grab them right away or we wait too long, he'll just tell us,
look, you don't want to hear it? Fine by me, just tell me.
But guess what? If we go down into his little hut, he will again offer us the binoculars, and this time he'll just wait until we grab them. And yeah, I know this is a small thing, but I love that the game reacts to you being almost uninteractive with it. We also take a quick nap, and I just love these time-lapse shots of the sun going up and down whenever you do sleep. A little cool detail as well, every time Artyom goes to sleep, is he actually turns his clock and sets a specific timer for when he should wake up, and you even hear that timer every time you do wake up. Using the binoculars, we can see all around us and discover what's happening in the Volga.
But I guess you shouldn't start a fight with them right away. They are dumb and brainwashed, so they were probably just scared shitless by your arrival. I'll bet they thought Judgment Day had come, and right on time, too.
Alright, Crest helps us get off of the giant forklift. But on the radio, we hear some chatter about Anna going missing, and she went missing in the same area where we did our first save point, as well as we fought off a bunch of the Watchmen. Looking around this place, whoopsie! Alright, well, it makes sense where Anna went to. She fell inside of this bunker, the same place that we saw earlier with the giant death skull, and she doesn't have her mask on, which is probably dangerous given, all the toxic fucking fumes around us. Now, the first time this happened to me, I didn't realize that this was a thing that had to happen in the game and is part of the main story and is linear. I genuinely thought this moment was just naturally happening, but it is scripted and it's supposed to happen and it's part of the main plot of the game. But as we're going around this bunker, we can tell that something is wrong here. This feels like a bit of a military or experimental bunker where the government may have been doing some strange things. There's a lot of canisters filled with fluids that we've never seen before, as well as documents that seem to indicate that whatever was going down here was pretty freaking sketchy. And did I also forget to mention the place is fucking crawling with humanimals, so, I mean, you gotta deal with those too. Luckily though, we get to the end and we manage to save Anna, and also run into Sam as well as Damir. Now, Sam is an interesting character, and we'll talk about him very heavily in the second half of this video, because there's a whole DLC that's set all around him. Why is he interesting? Well, the guy is an American. In lore, he's actually from the United States, and he kind of just ended up in the Moscow tunnels during the nukes dropping.
Chemicals of some kind. This place is either for storage or it's a dump. And that short could have been put there by the locals to mark the spot.
So Damir's just asking him if this is a bunker that's owned by NATO or the US. Of course, Sam doesn't know, and that's how he responds to him.
So Sam, tell me what the real enemy bases look like so that we know when we see it.
Well, first of all, there are these huge humanoid robots, all plastered with stars and stripes, with nuclear reactors up their asses. Oh, and the food's great. Burgers, fries, shakes.
With Anna saved, we can just head right back to the Aurora and check what's happening. It turns out, according to Stepan, that Katya and her daughter are not being allowed by Miller to go on the train. I kind of understand Miller because he's saying that, hey, this is not really the place or the environment for a woman and a child, but at the same time, if they're staying behind here, they're probably going to be chomped to death. So, we come to a compromise. According to Crest, there's supposed to be a caravan as well as a rail car inside of the terminal. So of course, it's my job as the main character to go and deal with that. Dude, I love this game. Before heading out though, we do learn some information about the terminal and what goes on there. We are told that we should probably approach it during the nighttime because that's when all the bandits in the area are going to be away. But also that we can probably find Duke a bit further up the road, so we make sure to keep that in mind as we go and find him later. Before leaving, we also do a little bit of crafting. Again, crafting in this game feels so much more immersive because if you want to craft big bullets, you need a workbench, which is logical. You shouldn't be able to craft bullets, literal 5.56 ammo inside of your backpack. It makes no sense, which is why the game feels like you're genuinely in world whenever you're doing things. On the way out, we also get our first side quest, talking to the daughter of Katya, that being Natsia, which, wow, she's really creative with the naming here, but nonetheless though, she tells us that apparently her teddy bear was taken by a demon, and so we have the option of, well, finding her teddy bear if we want to. Again, this is all side optional stuff, and you don't need to do it if you don't really want to do it. There's also some rabbits I kinda wanted to shoot, I'm not gonna lie. Before heading out, we can talk to Damir and Idiot, and they just tell us and make some jokes, as well as Damir mentioning somebody playing guitar in the distance. This is another side quest that gets essentially unlocked, but using our binoculars, we can sort of scout out and mark down stuff on our map just by observing the area. This gives us waypoints and locations to go to, because it's similar to how other games do this, but instead of you actually just getting a bunch of pointers on your map without wanting them, you have to use your binoculars to get these highlights given to you. Now that we're free to explore again, we go around and we run into a few bandits. Now, these guys can be fully ignored and it will not change any of the results of your actual journey, so it's best to not shoot them or deal with them. On our way to Duke, we run into a new enemy type, and this is the Lurkers, a rat-looking, cheese-eating French fuck. Pardon my French. These guys were present in the previous games, but looked honestly totally different. I don't know how they can change them this drastically, but either way, they're also persistent and beyond fucking annoying as they come in packs, but killing a few will scare the rest of them away, just like rats in real life. Lucky us though, Duke is here and he's been kind of holed up in a sniper's nest in a broken down tanker. Inside he's got himself a little workbench as well as a place for us to sleep and relax before heading out for the night. He does also inform us on some things.
By water. Luckily, there is a dock with a boat nearby. Left there by the fanatics, it seems.
Thanks to him, we learned two important elements. One, to enter the terminal we'll need a boat because it can only be entered through water. The second is that there is a gas station nearby which features some strange bandits, and also another bandit camp on the other side which has some poor fella being, well, abused. After some crafting and a good night of sleep, something weird can be heard outside. A weird electrical noise, and when we look underneath us, that is an anomaly. Now, if you guys do not know these enemies, they are a strange phenomenon that occurred all the way back in Metro 2033. It's an electrical current or a creature of sorts that will just go around and destroy everything in its path. And here we see it interacting with those lurkers. It's actually killing them and blowing them up. But there is another element to the specifically anomalies that is really cool. You see, if we try to shoot at them, nothing will happen. You cannot really kill an anomaly, but an anomaly can actually die. It's a rare event where it will implode on itself and just be destroyed. It's something I'd never seen before until one time when I was just exploring and I ran into this. And that's it, the anomaly just fizzled out. A really interesting detail is that the cult in the Volga, right, all these villagers that we run into as we're exploring, they're all believing in this hatred of electricity, right? They all hate electricity, and it's probably because they ran into these anomalies at some point, and they probably terrified them. So, Celanthius uses that to his advantage to manipulate the people into believing his bullshit. However, a fucked up thing he does do to his people though is, if anybody goes against his words, or really anybody he wants to punish, will be sent out with just some prayers and a book to go and deal with the anomalies on their own. And if they're lucky, maybe the anomaly will implode on itself before it kills them, but most of the time, the poor fellas will just be fried like a shrimp. Leaving Duke's Nest, we begin our first side quest. For this one, we're approaching a bandit camp. We can see a lot of bodies strewn about outside, probably other bandits that died while defending the little base, but one of the rooms features something genuinely grim. It is two villagers, one of them has just been shot, and the other one has been hung. Clearly, these bandits don't mess around, and for the fact, we know that we should not be showing them any mercy. Inside the building, it's crawling with forces. They're talking about us in particular, and there are moments like this in the game where you will be mentioned by NPCs. They'll talk about you and the things you've been doing in the surroundings. Well, my first approach was to try to go stealthily, but unfortunately, one of them saw me and I just had to start blasting my way through all of them. Here we have two options of what we can do. We can actually save the guys inside. If you're wondering what I mean by save them, well, there's actually villagers that have been kept hostage as slaves by the bandits. We can release them, and in doing so, one of the villagers will actually give us something in return. Apparently, he'll tell us that there is a secret room inside of the terminal, and using this key, we can enter it. Apparently, this room holds some technology that they are not allowed to use, but that may come in handy for me, the heretic. And this is a cool thing, right? And if we didn't go through the bandit camp here and just deal with all the enemies, we could have easily missed a secret room that normally we wouldn't be able to access. Because I'm gonna be honest, on my first few playthroughs, there were moments where I just ignored a lot of the side quests and I went straight for the story parts. Now that we've saved these poor fellas from the bandits, we've gained a few moral points, and these moral points will be really handy. However, we do also find something really creepy underneath one of the bridges. It's a giant demon, and demons are these weird bat-like creatures that have been around since the original games as well. I decided to just start blasting and hoping that if I kill this thing, I won't have to deal with it later. Pro tip, don't do that. Don't waste your bullets, and if you don't need to fight something, just do not fight it, because you almost gain nothing from doing that. But one thing that was worth it though was that going through the bridge here and going underneath it, we actually discovered something really interesting. There is a body with a bunch of knives inside of it, and here the game teaches us about throwing knives. These are, of course, weapons we can use to deal with smaller enemies and doing stealthy kills. And even here the environmental storytelling shows us the cruelty of the bandits. They've hung people and done this for a long time, punishing anyone and everything around here. There's even some possibly human skin hanging off of one of the wires, so that's a bit grim. The rest of my night is mostly just spent observing anomalies and throwing down a bunch of Molotovs into rats' nests, before eventually arriving to our second side quest, another bandit tower. Now, my first approach on this bandit camp was the same one I wanted for the other ones. I was going in and trying to go stealthy, my goal being to only knock people out instead of actually killing them like I've done before. But something interesting changed here. You see, there is a poor guy that's being kept hostage here, and if I take my time too long, he'll be shot. The bandits will kill him. So I save scummed and just reset my save file back a little bit, and this time I did not hold back. Let's go! Now that we've actually saved this guy, it was worth it, because he tells us that there is a secret thing that we can find, a object of sorts, on an island nearby. And this is something, again, that we wouldn't have known about if we did not actually experience this and go through saving this poor villager. And of course, I do like the moral points because I want the good ending of the game.
Oh, I see you're one of the heretics. But I tell you anyway, there is a cache here, on this island. There is a device, but we can use it. It's a sin, but you could.
Climbing the top of the bandit tower, we also find a guitar. Remember how earlier we had a little bit of a side note by Damir about hearing a guitar in the distance? Well, guess what? That was the guitar we heard, and Stepan also wanted the guitar. This is something he mentioned a little bit earlier if we listen to his dialogue. So now we've got another side quest completed that we normally wouldn't have done, and I normally would not have been experiencing if it wasn't for me just being immersed in the world of Metro Exodus. All right, let me pull out my binoculars and, wait, hold up. Are those guys fishing? Oh shit, they're actually fishing. See, if we approach any villagers or innocent people, if we just holster our weapon by pressing H on our keyboard on PC, they will not be feeling threatened. So if they have weapons, they won't shoot back, and if they don't feel threatened, we'll learn some new information from them. The fishermen are part of the village, and these guys also hate any form of technology. But lucky for us though, there is a little bit of a hut nearby where we can go and save. Inside there's also a music player, and if we listen to the cassette, it's actually Crest. It turns out he stayed here for some time as well. But the villagers are gone? Wait, did the starfish actually eat them? So, trying to use the boats, it doesn't fucking work, and I get a unique death animation by the starfish. But fear not, I tried a second time, and this time I actually made it over. Now, I took into account something that the villagers said. Apparently, they lost a train depot close by to the bandits, and going to it ourselves, the outside is very high on radiation. If we check our radiation detector, it will be going crazy. So we put on the gas mask and try to leave the area before, well, we died to radiation poisoning. They did also mention that nearby, one of the factories that existed, which is now just in ruins, is also being held by the bandits. So I go through and defeat all the enemies inside, but one of them actually surrenders to me. We can see here exactly how these interactions work, because I don't go around killing everybody on my journey, and I try to keep my killing of humans to a minimum. People will react to that, and they will genuinely surrender instead of fighting to their fullest abilities, just because there's no point in dying. It's pointless, it's worthless, and I don't want to be killing these guys to begin with. Jump around a bunch of tubes in the train yard, we eventually reach some silos, as well as a few other villagers. This time it's two guys. One of them is an older gentleman and one of them is a younger boy, and it turns out that they're father and son. The boy is clearly really invested in the whole cult thing, whereas the dad is older and, well, he realizes that Encelantius is just a cult leader. He understands that. But apparently, the son does not like the radio that's being playing here. We have actually two options here. If we interact with the radio, we can take the cassette out and take it for ourselves. But if we don't do that and instead enter the little hut and save our game, we'll hear them outside arguing before the son shoots the radio. He considers it heresy and evil, which, I mean, fair enough if you really believe in that, but I highly doubt electricity really is your biggest enemy here, buddy.
Just went and brought a heretic upon us with this hellish contraption. Think fish he was peaceful, and we won't get this lucky next time.
Instead, I decide, hey, I'm just gonna climb one of the silos and see what's here. On top of it, we find a weird nest, but also a demon. This is not really a boss battle, but it's kind of feeling like that a little bit, because the thing is flying around us similar to how a boss battle would and swooping down. Having killed the demon, we can see that this is supposed to be its nest, and right underneath it is a teddy bear. This is the one we were sent to find for none else than, of course, Nastya. So now that we have it, we can actually give it back to her the next time we run into her. So we can now either go to the train depot, which we heard the bandits are taken over, but we will return here a bit later, because right now we don't really need to go there. Instead, we go back to Duke, we save up, and of course, we head over to the gas station. So it's best to approach this place late at night and also underneath cover. This is because on the roof, as told to us by Duke, there is a sniper outlook. And if we look there, yeah, he's actually looking out over the area, scouting it. The bandits themselves are just talking about how they harassed a person and generally just what kind of dickheads they are. But there's something interesting inside of the actual gas station. There's a note that was written by an employee that worked here way back when World War III in Metro started. According to the worker, the government had told a bunch of civilians that they should head to these gas stations to fill up their resources before the bombs were dropping. But the tanker that was supposed to bring the actual fuel never showed up, so the poor worker had to tell these innocent people that they did not have the fuel, and on top of that had to deal with the backlash from the customers being pissed off. I think it's interesting to see these actual old stories from people that genuinely lived through the horrors before Metro 2033. With the bandits now cleared out in the gas station, we have an easier time to get to the terminal, as it's normally being watched over by them. Before heading inside, we make sure, of course, to stack up on ammo, resources, and crafting. We can even now equip this throwing weapons harness, which we found inside of the airplane much earlier. And another thing that makes the game immersive is that you need to clean your weapons. Like, you actually have to clean your weapons and patch up your gas mask, because if you don't do it, they will lose their effectiveness and stop working. But the game balances this really well, where it doesn't make it feel tedious or that's necessarily a detrimental thing to the experience of the game. Having ourselves a quick nap, it's time to get on the boat, but as we're going with it, we've picked up a new weapon, a pistol. However, this pistol is not really the best because it will overheat, and I love the little visual aspect here that when the weapon does overheat, the actual barrel turns red from how hot it is. The outside of the terminal has the same markings as the cults, the same ones we saw when we were approaching their church, and Even further inside, there are hung people, most likely people that were hung by Silanthius or the bandits. The terminal in itself is a bit strange. It's gooey and old and run down, but there is an essence of somebody still remaining here. And, well, we'll soon learn who those people are. The terminal is crawling with humanimals. These guys are all over the place, and it's clear why. A lot of things inside are just toxic fumes and prone to having lots of radiation in them. It's honestly terrifying as you approach and you just see these things all over the place, just crawling around. But in the side though, we can see the rail car. That's the rail car that we need for much later to save Katya as well as your daughter and take them along with us. On the shore, we can start exploring. The humanimals literally behave like something out of a horror movie because they will just appear from the water suddenly. Of course, shooting them in the head is the best case scenario if you want to avoid wasting bullets, but sometimes you just gotta go for it. Also, a high recommendation for me is play this game on hardcore mode. I played the game in both modes and the gameplay is a mix of those two things. Eventually we reach a strange door. Turning off the light and trying to open it, we use that key that the villager gave us from the bandit camp way earlier in our journey. And here, there's a strange shrine, as well as old military equipment. On one of the desks, there is night vision goggles. Now, these things have been in all the Metro games forever now, and night vision goggles are just handy during night sections if you want to go around exploring, but if you struggle seeing stuff. There's also a tape on one of the tables, and listening to it, we learned some honestly grim details. It turns out that the weird fish and mutated creatures that we've seen, a lot of them were actually created by the government. It seems that the terminal was the location of some sort of experimental research.
Basin have not only survived and remained completely unharmed, but quite unexpectedly have overtaken the control groups in terms of growth by a factor of at least 4.
They were mutating fish, like catfish for example, and seeing how they reacted to the mutations. Some would die, but catfish in particular would actually live. So, this would mean that the shrimps, as well as the giant starfish, are both experiments that were created not by radiation from the actual nukes, but rather by humans themselves or the Invisible Watchers, the secret government cabal. This place is honestly really sad though. There are graves everywhere and even small caskets, most likely belonging to the children of whoever was living inside of the terminal. And this is such a cool thing. You'd never even know that this was in the game if you didn't deal with those bandits and get the key. But it adds to the world of Metro. Realize that the nukes weren't the only thing that changed this world. It was also the actions of man doing it intentionally. And more, I'm starting to question if the government really still exists in the same form, and even if it does exist, if we can trust them. Even if we try to go stealthily through this section, it is really hard, and it's better just to blast your way through as much as you can. Of course, in some parts, it's best to go quietly, but there are moments like when the giant starfish just fucking attacks you out of the water, where you can't really do much about it. And all throughout this section, the starfish will come and interact with you. It will kill some of the humanimals for you, it will get in your way, it will block you, attack you, and eventually, we find the bloody control room. Now here, there is two funny details. There's actually a Metro 2034 book on the table, which is kind of cool. That's of course what the games are all based on. And second of all, there's 3 levers. They are all holding up hanging bodies. Now, we can either not interact with this control panel and instead just take the rail car close by. But if we do drop the bodies, the starfish will come and try to eat them. If we hit the last control lever, we'll crush this thing with a bunch of heavy metal. And that's how you kill the starfish. There's also a little cutscene that plays where it tries to eat you again if you walk a bit closer to the edge. But other than that, the starfish is dead. We've actually killed it, and we didn't need to even waste a bunch of bullets doing it. With the rail car in hand, we can drive it and get out of the terminal finally. We hear from the others, and we learn that if we want to get our hands on the caravan, which is just an attachment to the train with multiple compartments, which belong to Katya and her daughter, we will need to go to the train depot, which we heard about earlier. Now, here's an interesting thing. We could have gone to the train depot earlier and already killed all the bandits inside of it. But since we didn't do that earlier, we now have to deal with them instead. And this has a heavy impact on what happens. If you approach it now, the bandits will either be more aggressive or less aggressive. In my case, they were less aggressive, and shooting my way through all of them, some of them actually ended up surrendering, and I was able to get the caravan and get out of here as fast as possible. Making it all the way back to the others.
Now get over here. The caravan has arrived.
Hey fellas, look what I dragged in. It seems Nastya and Katya are both very happy to have their old home back. Alright, hello there little fella. Well, I'm gonna give her her teddy bear. And my reward is her gratitude. That's it. But also good moral points. And alright, talking to Miller, we learned some new information.
Did great. Thank you. So, here's the plan. Your group captures the tugboat. Then you, Duke and Crest take it to the bridge. While Crest distracts the guards, you and Duke infiltrate the control room at the top and lower the bridge. On your mark, we'll ram the gates, pick you up, and I pray to God it works out.
What we need to do, first of all, is go over to the harbor. Here we're gonna get our hands on a tugboat from the villagers, which we can take over to the shantytown. Now, the shantytown is essentially a city built on top of a bridge, which is really cool because it reminds me of two things. First is the long bridge from Game of Thrones, which looks just like this. It's essentially a community built atop of a bridge with everything inside of it. Hospitals, homes, shops, everything you can imagine. Outside, we can also talk to Stepan and give him the guitar we found. He'll be very happy, and giving him the guitar here will change something in the game much later. Heading over to the harbor, the first person we run into is Crest. With him, we can go underneath and approach from the most stealthy position. Or we go upstairs into the giant forklift and have ourselves a nap. Whoa, holy shit, it's Anna. So yeah, sometimes when you go to sleep, if there are characters in the area, they will watch you in your sleep. Sometimes they will kill you if you just go to sleep in the open. Now that we've had some rest, we can decide on how we approach this. If we go nighttime, we can go stealthily with Crest underneath, but if we want to go a bit more aggressive, we can go from the top with Duke instead. In my case, I go the stealthy option. Together with Crest, we go through a underneath tunnel. The place is nasty, but he's able to do bird noises, and I'm able to knock people out.
Hey, what was that? We have to check it out.
Now, to be honest, if you're going to go stealthily, you're probably gonna have to save scum a lot, because it's really hard to tell where some of these enemies are at, and sometimes the AI can see you when it shouldn't be able to see you. Crawling around all the tubes and boxes on the trains and just generally trying to avoid any attention was actually really awesome. But genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, I love this game. And I know the stealth sections can be a little bit difficult, but they do make you feel so much more happy when you do complete them. Because I was able to enjoy the game from a different perspective here. I was able to enjoy how different the game felt when I wasn't just blasting my way through everything and just discovering small details and areas that I'd never seen before. Finally getting to the tugboat, we find the captain, and the dude does not want to die, so he just surrenders. And if we don't shoot him, he'll tell all his people just to stand down and holster their weapons.
Artyom, all of our guys are fine. You did great.
If you're not, we have no time to waste.
Good luck, guys. I hope the winds are fair and the waters are smooth. And Artyom, watch it out there.
We take the tugboat and come in closer. And climbing up, we do it like a fucking ninja. Inside, though, we can hear paladins. These are holy soldiers of Celanthius's. But a funny detail is that if we've been friendly and not killing as many people, or just avoided killing villagers, they will actually talk about us being a decent person, which is an indicator that we have a lot of good moral points.
A heretic actually arrived right at this ceremony. Our guys rushed over
The shantytown itself is very hard to traverse. There's a lot of nooks and crannies that you can go through to avoid enemies, but also the amount of detail and effort that was put into this place is honestly astonishing. Just a lot of the ways things look is fantastic. Our goal, however, is to get to that final door. As the rain starts pouring, it's actually a good cover for us to get around without being noticed. We can also hear Celanthius once again preaching to the choir. And like I said, instead of blasting our way through, we take the stealth way, and eventually we reach the door.
take her along herself. Do you get me?
Sure thing. First you kill off the local cutthroats, and then you switch to us. Will you kill elders and children too? Or have you drunk enough blood already? Leave us for good now. God may punish you for your sins, but my responsibility is to tend my flock.
That's a good boy.
Hear me, brothers! Hold your fire! You hear me? I'll excommunicate everyone who shoots!
Now this interaction is really cool, because we got the good version of this interaction. You see, here we see that Silanthius clearly is just a scumbag. He knows that he's just bullshitting. Because we did all the side quests and we helped everybody out in the Volga, Silanthius will actually allow us to pass through without conflict and without fighting. And what this does is it keeps Duke alive. You see, Duke as a character would normally die here if you didn't get good moral points. This is the good ending of the Volga, with Duke surviving with us. My first time playing, he actually died because I did not pay attention and I did not try to get higher moral points. Alright, well, we're back on the train and it seems that Miller wants to talk to us. But before that, we can actually just spend some time exploring the train. The first thing I do is check our table, which has a bunch of interesting notes and books that were written by Artyom. The drawings out of this book are actually really cool, but the more cool thing is the radio nearby. If we switch between different frequencies, we can eventually listen to some music as well as a radio broadcast.
Well, that was Zakhar's idea, and Zakhar is the man. He crossed Baikal alone. Should we try not to do anything he brought ahead?
You're so cool now that the relay gang is off your case?
It's an interaction between a bunch of people, and they're talking about a specific location. That being the city of Irkutsk in Russia. This is a city very far east in Russia, away from Moscow and our current location, but it seems that that city has remained operable. People still live there and it seems relatively safe. According to the broadcast, a man was having to deal with a bunch of bandits while trying to make it through the whole place, and according to information, Irkutsk was never actually hit by nukes. Instead, the city actually survived and was mostly just flooded. I think it's really cool that they even mention these locations that we're probably not even going to end up going to in this game, but that could be used for future games as well. Before going to Miller, we can also lay down and just interact with Anna. We'll just spend this whole moment with her talking, and there's even a button for you to literally press to, I guess, snuggle? It's just so weird, okay? It feels like a wife simulator more so than it feels like Metro Exodus, but it's a cool little interaction that you don't even need to do. And the funny thing is that you wouldn't even get the same responses from her if you'd gotten the bad ending and Duke had died. She'd be acting differently, and the things she would be talking about would also be different.
This is the main transport artery, after all. Maybe they are not here at all. Maybe they never came here, or they are already gone. Though, where to? Remember? Neither Katya nor Crest have ever met them.
However, from her words, we can kind of tell that Anna doesn't really believe in this Invisible Watcher's shadow government. She doesn't really trust it, and she thinks it's all a little bit sketchy. The same way I feel about it. She finds that fact that Silanthius was basically misleading people, which to her is just crazy how they could even believe it, but the same thing was happening to us in the metro. We can go through the rest of the train and interact with people. For example, checking out what's happening with Crest at the back of the train, having a bit of a smoke, or going to Stepan where we can now play the guitar together, a moment that we would not have had if we didn't get the extra guitar from the side quest. And I love this. It's these small moments that leave an impact. This is why Metro Exodus is one of my personal favorite games. It's these small things that they do in the journey of yours that makes it so impactful and memorable. An even better thing is that Duke is also alive. Now everybody in the train is just happy and listening to him telling a bullshit story about how he saved us. Finally, it's time to talk to Miller, and the information he has is kind of crazy.
I had a talk with the Ark. All thanks to Volga. He got the decoder working.
Ark, come in. Come in, Ark. Oh, how do I address you? The Deputy Chief of Communications Department, Major Ivanov. A moment. Oh, yes,
We're on our way to the Yamantau mountain, and he was able to actually get in touch on radio with the people living there, people from the government. However, something about the way the guy speaks on the radio makes it sound a little bit like Doofenshmirtz from like Phineas and Ferb, so I don't know if I would trust him. So, our next chapter on the journey is now known. We're headed for the Yamantau mountains. Closing in to the Yamantau mountain, which, by the way, is an actual location in Russia. It's in the Ural Mountains, and it's close to one of the biggest cities in Russia, Chelyabinsk, which is actually where my favorite YouTuber, Nafakers, is from.
Still can't believe this. We're there. Do you get this? We're finally there. This has been our goal, not for weeks or months, but for 20 years.
The feeling leading up to this place is a bit odd. Miller seems in good spirits. He thinks we're gonna get to meet the actual government officials and the commanders that have been in charge keeping, well, I guess Russian society going. But on the other hand, the area around us looks kind of strange. On one end, it looks fully destroyed with vehicles being decimated, but on the other hand, there is still some forest left standing, and as we close in, radiation starts to increase.
Yermak, stop the engine! Take the Aurora back to the safe zone and sit tight there.
We do that right now!
The outside of the bunker is noticeably strange. There's a lot of vehicles outside fully destroyed, either abandoned by the people inside who got there in time, or belonging to people who just never made it inside to begin with. It's hard to tell.
Yes, they work. Nobody came from Moscow, though, until now.
So much time wasted.
We'll make up for that now.
Canadian red carpet. I don't get this. Oh, see? Nobody home. How about we go back, huh? Wait.
Look!
Okay, hey, I'm gonna be real. I don't trust that random machine gun pointing at me. I'm gonna be real with you.
Identify yourself.
Colonel Miller, here to report to the Minister of Defense.
And where are your people, Colonel?
With the train.
It's dangerous outside. Contact them and tell them to take the train into the main airlock for decontamination.
To be honest, the actual environmental design in this place is fantastic. It really gives off that old Soviet-era architecture and design philosophy, which you can definitely see in the elevator. I don't know why, but these kind of wooden walls really just remind me of that.
Reporting to the minister is no joke.
Ah, get off my case. I pulled an all-nighter.
Don't you feel like you should say something to Artyom now?
Yes, you were right, Artyom. And I was wrong. Thanks for not giving up. Here goes nothing.
Walking into what is clearly going to be a trap, in front of us we have some commander-looking dudes that just kind of give off that vibe like they're from a 90s B-movie, being the villain, if you catch my drift. And oh, look at that, we get attacked by a bunch of cannibals. Waking up, we witness as the Doctor. This fella, apparently, is the leader of these strange weirdos, and it turns out they're all cannibals. They've been living inside of this bunker and tricking people to come inside of it so they can eat them.
Calm down, we'll get jaundice like this. And believe me, nobody likes that bitter taste. The girl will have to wait, though. We must run the tests first. I don't like that cough of hers.
Untie my hands, you motherfucker, and I'll shove those tests so far up your ass, you'll be spitting
Watch
them.
your tone, young lady. Do as that young man does. He woke up long ago, but quietly listens to wise people talk.
Let me go!
Not a single!
So, Colonel, now you will pick up the radio and tell the rest of your people on the train to come here.
Luckily, in the corner of our eye, we can see that Sam is here to save the day, but it turns out that they took Anna. So Miller, being pissed off to the brim, gives us a gun and we get straight to shooting. Now, I've spoken a little bit about the fact that the game has a morality system. Now, this morality system, as I've mentioned previously, does determine what sort of ending you get in the game and if certain characters will survive. In the previous case, we had Duke survive because, well, we didn't kill any of the villagers and we avoided killing humans as much as possible. However, in Yamantau Mountain, we can shoot everything. You actually even get an achievement if you kill 90 of the cannibals. Miller even points out that the design of this place is oddly similar to D6, which would actually make sense. These were all built pre-war. These were all built before World War III took place in the Metro universe, and this is all Soviet-era design. So it's all old and still existing and holding up, just like in our real world. There are a lot of these locations, if you go exploring out there, which you can find if you go to Eastern Europe, which still retain a lot of this technology. And of course, just like in any Metro situation, we're going to be split off by everyone and go on our own to look through the medbay. Picking up one of the diaries, we can read some information by some of the people that actually worked at this location before. Turns out that the person who wrote the diary was one of the workers that built this bunker, but maybe luckily for them, the government actually never arrived. They never got to the place, but the construction was completed. However, their supplies of food were running short, and it was mostly just dudes here at the time. Going through this place is mostly just blasting through a bunch of the cannibals. There is also a storage room, a sort of cold room, where they're keeping a bunch of bodies, I guess, for meat, which, again, is a bit messed up. And so far, even within the regular Metro, we haven't really run into, well, straight up cannibals. We have run into mutants, but those things work differently than these guys. These dudes are just straight up messed up. These are humans going down the kind of worst possible path they could, consuming other humans. Like, it's not much worse you can get than that, to be fair. There is this tiny little nook and cranny which you can squeeze through. Now, you don't even need to do it in the game. You can easily pass by this area, but if you do explore it, you'll find two things. One is a postcard. This postcard itself actually seems to be of a lighthouse by the ocean, which is kind of cool. There's also some target practice boards on the walls, but one of the things we find is a diary entry. This one, again, is talking about, well, the cannibalism. It's the same writer of the diary, but in this entry, he's talking about the fact that he finally gave in. He just spilled his guts after having the first taste, but eventually it just started tasting like chicken to him, which, honestly, have you ever thought about the fact that everything tastes like chicken? It is kind of weird. But either way, though, it is just proof again that maybe not everybody here wanted to go down this path, but after 20 plus years of being stuck in this place, they went down the worst possible road they could, consuming their friends and fellow humans. Majority of the Yamantau Mountain section of the game consists of mostly just finding a bunch of, well, cannibals, shooting them, and figuring out that they have a fridge full of heads, which is a bit disturbing to say the least. But overall, the location, like I said previously, does look very similar to D6, so even the rooms are very reminiscent of that. Also, there's a bunch of these weird pictures of just random girl on a lot of these walls. I'm not sure it's supposed to be a reference or something, but I digress. Eventually, we run into this big guy right here. Now, he's got himself a fat machine gun, and it turns out that we can defeat him if we just throw Molotovs, which I didn't really have, but just blasting the shit out of him, he's able to be defeated. Like I said, he's just a little bit of a mini-boss, but after that, we eventually get to the doctor.
Artyom, I knew! Behind you!
There is always one like you, a hero. You're not saving anyone, just like the others. So just
freeze.
Yes.
Let him go.
Don't kill me.
Now.
Remember what I told you. There was an
Enough chatter.
Before the doc can say what he wants to say, well, turns out Anna just slits his throat and the dude is, well, dead. So we don't really know what kind of secret he was about to tell us. She stopped him from spilling it, but it is what it is. She hands us the knife and we are ready to rumble once more. Reading another officer diary, we learn some other details. people have not been able to reach out to the ones around them, and so the officer, as well as a bunch of the boys, had gone and fixed one of the antennas to send out the first message. They managed to do it, but lost a few people along the way because of radiation. However, the doc, and this was before they started cannibalizing each other, was also communicating with the officer. However, we quickly learned that anytime refugees actually came to this location, they were put into quarantine, but never seen again. And so quickly, this officer was starting to realize that something wasn't right. These refugees never brought meat with them, only grain and really just basic rations, but all of a sudden there was an increase in meat. You can kind of see how slowly things just went wrong in this place.
This whole situation, though, I thought we wouldn't see anything worse than that cult on the Volga. And that's Silencius with his damned fanatics.
Making it to the command center, Anna is kind of pissed at Miller, but on the other hand, Miller is also pissed at us for taking us on this whole journey to begin with. Overall, though, I'm gonna put it like this: I don't blame Artyom, okay? He was not the one who wanted to go to this military bunker. He just wanted to find a beautiful place for us to start a new life on the actual surface.
Some fucking ark. These monsters had it made, like the Watchers in Moscow. Those keep people on the ground with their deceit. But these...
All right, but what do we do now?
I'll be damned if I know, Anna. No idea. Have you found anything, idiot?
Their defense sites, HQs, all the information is outdated. All links are long gone. Still, the ones that light up worked for at least a few years after the war.
What's down there?
It's Caspian 1, a comm center. There's one more just like that in Novosibirsk.
Are you going to drag us to some other bunker
I don't know, Anna. We have to make the decision together.
But all that remains now is to blast our way through this place. We just have to fight through mountains and mountains of cannibals, and these dudes do not stop. They just keep coming at you over and over again. But luckily, of course, we managed to escape without any losses.
Oh, to think I believed those pricks from Hansa. I believed that Moscow was controlled by the HQ, that we were under occupation, that we were still in war, that there were generals here giving orders. What an idiot, suka!
After a quick conversation, we've noticed that things are looking bad. We went out here to reach Yamantau as a way to find a new safe haven, a place where other humans exist, where the quote-unquote government was supposed to exist, but that's not really a thing. It doesn't exist at all. And when we're talking to Idiot, well, he actually figured something out. Apparently, looking at some of the data back at the bunker, it turns out if we can get our hands on satellite pictures from anywhere between 2013 and 2019, we should be able to figure out locations in Russia, or well, in the world, where we can find safe haven. A place where nuclear radiation hasn't reached, or just a place which has less radiation overall, where we can actually settle down and build a new colony. And so that's what our goal is for now. Find a new safe haven. Our next journey takes us to the Caspian. This would be the Caspian Sea, which is sort of within the borders of Russia, Kazakhstan, and I think one more country. Overall, though, the weird thing is the detour we've taken to get to the Caspian Sea, because we actually now are technically going through Kazakhstan and not Russia anymore if we're looking at the real-world map equivalent, which is fine and all, just a bit random. Though the weather is really warm here. It's deserty looking, and it's kind of strange to see this in a Metro game, I'm gonna be honest with you. At first, when I saw the trailers back in the day for Metro Exodus, I was a bit shocked to see sand, to be real with you. I always kind of associated Metro with, well, the tunnels of the Moscow, cold, snowy, dreary, Eastern European looking worlds. So that's sort of what I expected. So seeing this was a little bit strange. Our presence has been noticed by the locals, and it's pretty evident because we literally see one of those little, like, old school Volkswagen hippie buses driving past us.
They stopped in that village there. Looks like somebody lives there.
I see. How are the men doing, Demir?
Stepan is the worst off. The others are not so well either. Only us here are still in fighting shape.
Thank you. Anna, you and Damir reconnoiter the area. We need to find the damn bunker and hit the road as soon as we do.
Things are not the best on the train. According to Miller, it seems we're running out of water and we really need it for the train to be able to keep going. But also, it turns out a lot of our comrades are actually sick. Like, for example, Stepan has come down with some fever, and it could be the weather or it could be something else. Even Anna has got a bit of a sketchy cough, which is really terrifying if you think about it. Stepping outside, this place really is a straight-up desert. There is different demons flying in the sky, but we have an option here. We can either go straight for our checkpoint and figure out what's happening with these locals and try to communicate with them, or we can stay at the Aurora and interact with the people. One of the options here is actually going back inside the Aurora and checking in on Stepan. If we do this, we can see that he's clearly sick and can't get up.
You'd better rest while it's not your shift.
Well, Artyom, I really do feel kinda under the weather now. Maybe next time.
This is something that's easily missed and something you just wouldn't even notice if you had just gone straight out on your adventure. But now that we've checked out this little train station and seeing where we're going to set up base for now, we can head into the desert. So, time for exploration. The first thing I find is actually a sniper rifle, which is a brand new weapon we'll have access to. This thing, of course, is bolt action, which means one bullet at a time, but it does have great range and insanely high damage. However, we don't have a lot of ammunition for it. The second thing I encounter, though, is a sandstorm. You see, there are weather effects in Metro Exodus that will change as time goes on, and in this case, we have a little sandstorm that will come in, as well as some humanimals that hide in the sand. These guys are already terrifying, as you guys may have noticed by our previous encounters with them in the Volga, but man, I do not like humanimals. Not in the sense that they're bad, but in the sense that they are terrifying. Just the way they will attack you is honestly scary. Nearby, there's also this really big radio tower. Inside, we can hear the calls and pleas from the person that's hiding at the top of the building. It seems they're being attacked by the humanimals, as well as the storm causing issues for them. Outside, they've left their truck. This looks like the vehicle we saw with the train earlier, which is kind of a cool little detail. But for now, we cannot take this truck even if we wanted to. Instead, we fight our way to the top, past these rotting humanimal mutants, and eventually run into this guy.
You made a mistake coming here.
After a quick tumble, we are actually able to choose if we want to kill or spare this guy. If we kill him, it will change how things turn out for us in the Caspian. However, if we spare him, it will unlock a side quest a little bit later. Grabbing his keys, we can get the hell out of here. But unfortunately, trying to get into a truck only causes the humanimals to jump all over us, trying to get a little smooch. Lucky us though, Damir is here and he saves us, and we're able to actually use the truck now. And this is something that I'd been waiting for all the way since Metro 2033. You see, in 2033 and Last Light, the previous entries in this series, there were these segments, these short moments in gameplay where you were allowed to sort of drive a vehicle, or if not drive, at least sort of interact with the vehicle to some extent. Most of those time though, it was all on rails. You didn't have the decision or choice of going left or right. You were just stuck on a literal train track and that's it. But here, we get to finally use a vehicle to get around. We get to enjoy the whole space of Metro without too much hassle. It's genuinely so much more enjoyable and fun this way to explore whatever direction we want to. And of course, the vehicle is needed because this place is big. You really need a truck to get around. And alright, now it's time for me to just blabber on for a while before we get back to the main story. So this is one of the parts about the Caspian that I love the most, and honestly one of the reasons this game just stands out to me. Now, I've played a lot of open world games, and I'm not the biggest fan of them necessarily, but something about the way Metro presents its open world just stands out to me far more than those games. Now, does Metro end up being the perfect game? Definitely not, but I think it is a masterpiece in its own way. The open world in this game is something that just made me want to go and explore. There wasn't a million quest markers and things telling me, go here, do this, go there, do that. The game sort of just dynamically happens. A lot of times you don't know if the actions you're taking are caused by you yourself or if it's just happening randomly while exploring. And it made me want to check out every single place in this game. Like things that I discovered on my second or third playthrough, I never even knew existed in the game originally back when I played it the first time around. There were so many things I had just missed, but this time I decided, hey, I'm gonna just explore and have fun with it, and it actually paid off. There's so many tiny little details in this game, and just tiny little details in every location you go to that make everything stand out and just keep you immersed. And I think that's the best way to describe Metro Exodus. It is by far the most immersive game that I've ever played. I genuinely felt like I was there, and I know that's just a standard thing everybody says, I feel like Batman, but I actually felt like Batman, okay? Or I felt like Artyom. I genuinely felt like I was my little Pepe walking around in this desolate desert. It just made it feel so visceral, and I love it. There's this one random boat as an example that I decided to explore, which you don't even need to go to, but inside I found one of the locals who was essentially dead, as well as just a bunch of resources. Did I need to go here? Of course not, but it's just worthwhile because sometimes you'll find the smallest of things. You'll find a weird diary entry or a postcard or just a collectible that maybe you needed. We can also find a boat that's abandoned, and inside, well, we first of all run into a bunch of traps that blow us up, as well as a few of the humanimal mutants, but eventually we can take a nap, relax, just take a breather, chill, before waking up and heading down towards, well, something that's a little bit more disturbing. These people are essentially slaves. They're being controlled by the people known as the Munai Bailer, or Munai Bailer in this case being oil people. We can actually discover some of these geysers just shooting out black gold, essentially. If you guys know what I mean by that, it's just oil, the crude oil used to make gas. And these people are still the richest in the area, the people that control these geysers. And they've turned the locals into essentially just a slave force. Now we have an option. We can sneak around this boat, and if we do this and take out every single one of the Munai Bailer guards, or, well, essentially the slavers, if we take them all out and make sure to not shoot a single one of the innocent people, we will have done one of the side quests. Now, we don't need to do this, and I'm gonna be real with you, I never used to do this before. This is my first time even bothering with this, but it is actually worth it because it will change the outcome of the game down the line. It's clear that these poor guys are being controlled by someone. We learn that this person is the Baron. He's sort of created a pseudo-religion of sorts for the slaves to believe in as a way to keep them in check, the Great Holy Flame of sorts. And this is all by the fact that he controls all the resources in the area. So, a quick call from Miller tells us what we need to do. Apparently, one of the locals is stuck at one of the lighthouses, and we need to go help them out because the Baron's men have essentially surrounded this individual, and we are offering to help him out in exchange for possibly getting some information that could be useful to us. Along the way, though, we do make a few pit stops before eventually hearing an announcement from the Baron. It seems that he wants the person stuck on the lighthouse to be killed. He does not want that person alive whatsoever, and, well, we're offering to help that individual out instead.
Everyone, the Baron is about to speak. Listen up, everyone. The Baron is speaking.
You fucking dickheads! What's so hard about naming one measly broad with a whole gang? So she killed a dozen boys already? What if you continue thinking with your asses, she'll kill you all too, and come calling at my door? The rivals are already telling legends of that witch. And if you continue performing the way you just did, it will stop worshipping her too. They don't really give a fuck as to how you get her. Burn the whole island if you have to. But if you dare come back empty-handed, you will be singing falsetto come morning. Fucking crickets.
As you were, everyone. The Baron has spoken.
For some reason, I really like this area because you get to sneak through essentially a weird-looking tunnel that feels almost ancient in design, and at times feels a little out of place, but I just love the way it feels aesthetically. Also, a small amount of details you can notice is that there are a bunch of traps that have already taken out a bunch of these raiders that have already came here to kill whoever's stuck on the lighthouse. Eventually, we reach the top, so as we sneak around here, we have the option of killing these people, but it will give us the worst ending in the game. These individuals that we are dealing with right here are not just evil people, they're also regular individuals that have been manipulated to work for the Baron. So we're kind of stuck in this weird limbo of, do we actually kill them or not? So we have the option of either shooting the guys on the ground here, as you can see all around us, but we're not going to do that. These tribals are not really necessary to kill, and if you shoot them, it will change the outcome of your ending. Instead, we're going to go up onto the tower and join Gyul. Now, Gyul is the person who was stuck on the tower and who the Baron really wants to get his hands on. Gyul has been stuck here for a long time, but she is one of the local people. She's from this area, and she does not like the Baron whatsoever. Taking the little boat up to the top of her observation tower, we can look around and observe the entirety of the Caspian Sea map. This place is huge, and there's a lot of outposts and small places we can go and explore where bandits, as well as some of the tribals or even villagers, are all located in. But overall though, Gyul just hates the Baron and wants to take him down. We have an option of helping out here or going the other way.
Put me in shackles too. Better death. Read you loud and clear. Your man helped me. I mean, you're dead, but why are you here? For 5 years, nobody would come here save for Munai by lair.
What do you know of the antennas near your lighthouse?
There used to be a comm center before the war. My mother worked there. She was an officer. The facility is long abandoned. I went there after war to look for Mom's traces, but found nothing.
Abandoned? We helped you, so could you help us in return by leaving our man inside?
Good. I will help.
Artyom, you have to find the archive. It should be near the command center. Look for shots taken after the war, starting with the year 2013. Demir will soon be there. You can count on him. Miller, over and out.
One thing though we have to do is go down into the bunker that's right underneath this lighthouse. Gyul's mother apparently worked there, and she even requests us, as we're making it down into the spidery cave, to perhaps find a picture of her mother and her, something that she really wants. And this is a side quest that we don't have to do, but if we do it, it will give us good points for morality.
See Mom's picture. Bring it. I'll be thankful to you as long as I live.
And so, entering this old, decrepit military outpost, we find ourselves in arguably the most terrifying section of the entirety of Metro Exodus. This is the spider section. And I'm gonna be real with you, I fucking hate it. Okay, spiders in this game are terrifying. If you guys haven't noticed it, there are these moments where spiders will just walk up on your arms in front of you as you're just walking around. Like, they'll literally just crawl all over your camera, and this shit really catches you off guard at times and just freaked me out anytime it did happen, because you cannot do anything about it. You can't stop them. Even if you have your lighter out, they'll still keep crawling on your ass. But this place is genuinely scary. Now, luckily for us though, we picked up a really strong light, or well, flashlight, much earlier in the game, and this flashlight before didn't really serve much of a purpose. We didn't really have any point in using it, but here it does make a difference. You see, these spiders, they are especially difficult to deal with because it's hard to kill them. Shooting them is not enough. You need them to be belly up for the shots to matter. However, they're extremely weak to light, and this is because these have mutated to stay underground. So just like every Discord mod, I shine them with light and they wither away. One of the notes left behind is by a man named Colonel Markov, and it turns out he committed suicide, but left behind a top secret mission. However, the people here, that being Lieutenant Novikov, did not want want to go through with whatever this request was or whatever this order was. Instead, he decided to simply hide it away and not go through with it, being treacherous in result, which again, we don't know what the purpose of this order was. Was it to kill everyone? Was it to die? We don't really know, but all we know is that whoever was in charge after Marakov took his own life decided that it wasn't the best course of action and was something to avoid. Yo, let me check this locker real quick, dude. Oh my fucking god! We keep going around the tunnels, but eventually Damir does come and patch through to us. He's able to navigate us through the actual maze that is this place. We even find this giant control room which features a map of the entire world. The only section that looks torn up is, for some reason, South America? Yo, what did the Brazilians do this time? Eventually, though, there is a roadblock. We cannot go through here, and the only way to actually get to the other side is to, of course, crawl through a creepy hole. The entirety of this part of the game is genuinely just trying to bring back that sort of claustrophobic feeling that you had in Metro 2033. The sort of scary element of anything can be around the corner, anything could catch you when you least expect it, and I fucking hate it, but I also love it because it keeps you on your toes. Exodus sort of offers a mix of that same feeling you had in these claustrophobic areas, mixed with open spaces to genuinely explore without feeling too overwhelming in the amount of things it offers you to find or even do. Now, before we head inside of where we need to go, we first stop by one of the side rooms. Inside, we find a tape player, and playing the cassette inside of it, it's something recorded by Gyul's mother. It seems that things just went to shit, and she got stuck down here, sort of dealing with all of it. However, checking her body, she's holding a photo in her arms. It's a photo of Gyul and her parents from before the war. This was the photo that she requested us to get for her. A photo that we could have easily avoided had we just not gone into this room. And this is again where the game does that thing where if you do not explore fully, you will not get to see what happens in the game. You don't get to learn every story, and that's something that I love about Metro. It's based on our real world, and just like in our real world, everybody's got their own story. There is these massive, massive chunks of things happening that you don't get to always see. We are only a tiny, tiny piece of that pie. And here, because we did some exploring, we get to see that. Also, checking the bookshelf, we find the Metro 2035 book being advertised, which is kind of funny. Crawling through the terrifying vent, we end up on the other side. First, we can check the side room, which contains what we're looking for, the satellite analysis data. Now, there are tubs here for basically every date, but if we check the tub specifically for 2001, September, you will find something very peculiar. It's a toy airplane. I don't think I need to elaborate any further. However, eventually checking on 2019 and 2013, we are able to find what we're looking for. This is the satellite data that we need to figure out a safe location for us to head to with the Aurora. Inside the bunker, we also find the last orders that were given. These were by the same, I guess, commander who took his own life. His last orders were to just abandon this radio station, to give up on it and leave this communication spot just open. Their goal was to escape from here and try to get in touch with the Yamantau mountain where the other people should be located. We don't really know if they made it there. We just know that the commander himself took his own life before it got to that point, and at which point the whole place was just overran by the spiders. Now, unfortunately for us though, we are in a shitty situation. The only way for Damir to get the elevator to save us from here is to essentially turn off the electricity, which means the lights will be off, which also means I have to fight a bunch of spiders, and oh boy do I hate these things. You see, every corner they'll just jizz all over you, dude. They'll just shoot their load right in your face every time, and all you can do is throw Molotov cocktails and just blast and hope your light does not go out, because if your battery goes out, oh, you are fucked. Lucky me though, the elevator does eventually open and I can get the fuck away from these things. Both Gyul and Damir are here and they help us get out of this shithole. We're able to get onto the elevator and escape, and even give the photo to Gyul, which makes her very happy and gives us good moral points.
Keprakme. Thank you, Artyom. This is for you. Father gave it to me when I was little. Damir says there's a little girl on your train. Give it to her. May it bring her luck.
With that sorted, we can listen to them talk about things. It turns out, according to Gyul, that her people, the people of this place, have been taken in control by the Mulai Bailer. The Mulai Bailer being the oil people, essentially, which I kind of already talked about a little bit. But the whole deal with these guys is that because they control the oil in this area and because they have more power, they've sort of made the locals into these dumb idiots that can be controlled fully just by the mere fact that they're young and inexperienced and all the elders have been killed off. So they serve as nothing more than slaves to them. We can either just hop in our car or keep listening. There is a lot of moments in the game where you can stand around and listen to conversations, which will give you more context to the world, or you can ignore all of it and just run to your next waypoint. Our truck can actually be found here too because Damir brought it over. Taking it, we can go out and we can hear Miller has had a conversation with the Baron. However, clearly the Baron does not believe that Colonel Miller is even a colonel or that he's even possibly from Moscow. All that just sounds like bullshit to him. But that's besides the point for us though. We don't really care. It's not up to us to decide what the Baron believes or doesn't believe. We're just here to get our goddamn water and get out. Driving around though, I do find this one save point area which has sort of almost like a tree house that you can climb into. Going here, we can lay down and take a nap. God damn it, man. How many times do I need to wake up to people being in front of me? Well, ladies and gentlemen, say hello to this fella.
Hell yeah! So don't you worry, pal. Saul wants to make you offer, so listen.
This is Saul. No, not Saul Goodman, though both these guys are equally as nefarious, and their behavior and just 100% speech skills are top-notch.
Forget how you knocked me out back then. I sure remember. My head still hurts, you see? I also remember that you didn't kill me when you could. So here you go. 8 bullets in the cylinder, you see. Cost me 2 tons of water, so be gentle with it. But that was just foreplay. Time for business.
Now, Saul here wants us to kill the real Baron. Now, why do I say the real one? Well, it turns out that Saul has found a poor fella who looks sort of familiar to the Baron, which he plans to use as a puppet to control the Caspian by replacing the real one. Another thing we learn about Saul is the fact that this is the same guy we knocked out way at the start of this level. You might recall there was a dude we punched in the face and stole a car from. Well, this is him, and it's really insane because this is such a dynamic event. Had we killed Saul in that moment instead of just knocking him out, then us sleeping here and running into him again would never have happened. A small but significant detail that if you only play the game once, you can easily overlook. However, the request we get from Saul is to kill the real Baron, so that he can replace him with a fake one. We can even encounter this fake Baron if we head towards a secret area in the game. However, back at the treehouse, Saul just offers us a revolver as a gift or a payment of sorts for now, which we will gladly take. A funny detail is that if we don't holster our weapon, Saul and his men will both get hostile right away, so it's best to keep old Bessie holstered for now.
I wish everybody was so reasonable.
Instead, we head up the road and run into our good old lady, Anna. Anna is actually having a bit of a lookout spot inside of this broken down boat. She allows us to use our binoculars to look out the entire area to see what's going on. We are once more free to look around. A broken down house holds nothing more than the occasional Mikado enemy type, and the geysers are really nice to observe, however, they serve not much of a purpose. But there is a giant tanker ship nearby, and inside, it looks like this thing is capsized and it's just stuck here. But we do find something more intriguing. It's filled to the brim with fucking spiders. Now, at no point previously had I even entered this place, but damn was it worth it, because climbing a few stairs and a ladder, we eventually uncover a new gun, the pump-action Uboynik, or in English, the Shambler. Its name in Russian literally standing for killer or murderer, given how fucking hard this thing hits. It's also fully decked out and filled to the brim with the latest and greatest of equipment. Now, the first time we could have picked this gun up was actually right after beating Saul at the beginning of the Caspian level. After that, there are a few more areas which it's available in, but it's an easily missed gun, so coming here was definitely worth it. even though I had to shoot some spiders in the face. Climbing to the top of the ship, we holster our gun and encounter a friendly NPC. This guy is the Hermit, and he used to also live alongside the Baron's people, but realized he didn't enjoy being treated like shit, so he got out of there faster than Diddy's friends did once they saw all the oil in his mansion.
I don't get many guests with all the spiders around. They packed the hold full of the Baron's Frankie's bones already. You must be real lucky to have gotten here in one piece. When I had to run from the gang, I hid here and spent ages watching the damn critters.
We learned some information from him. For one, he tells us that Saul can't be trusted, and he also reports on the Baron, as he loves to keep track of the dude on his radio. As we leave the Hermit, we craft some resources and head out to our truck once more. Every once in a while, you will actually hear these radio announcements from the Baron, where he is either scolding his subordinates or talking random gibberish. In this case, he's actually angry at one of his guards for not working together, and so he killed one of them just to prove a point, which is just ridiculous. In the meantime, though, we take out several of his camps along the way. There's even this one time where I tried to pull the humanimals towards one of the bandit camps and just kind of let them fight it out, which actually worked out in my favor. The remainder of my time is spent running around killing mutants and clearing out camps, and of course, burning demon nests, because I just love to see the world burn. So, after beating up half the people of the Mojave, after beating up half the people of the Caspian, we find a random Air Force base. Around us are multiple fallen helicopters, and on the top of the tower, it has another demon's nest inside it. We do fight the demon for a little bit, but eventually we enter one of the bunkers, which features one of the dead locals. If we try to interact with him, well, he's just dead, and a bunch of humanimals will attack us instead. But after fighting them all off, we'll hear a faint noise in the distance. Randomly, a group of tribals has arrived, and they seem pissed at us, which makes no sense.
Didn't we fucking tell you, motherfucker, that all the shit here is ours? And you're dead.
I had no idea these guys were going to suddenly appear out of thin air to attack me. They had seemingly just heard of my escapades all around the desert and were sent here to at least gain control of the airbase. That's what I thought, but later on I figured out what the real deal was. Either way, punching them all like Mike Tyson on cocaine allows us to climb the tower safely. Here we get a good vantage point to check out the nearby areas. One of the things we see is, of course, the Baron's base of operations. We aren't really going to be headed there just yet, but what we do witness, however, is a big building and what seems to be the Baron's face molded and made into a giant statue at the front. Guess he's compensating for something. After some good night of sleep, we once more grab our truck and hit the road. This time, we do run across another ship, but this one's under the control of the Baron as well. But given that these dudes are holding people as slaves inside of here, it only made sense to shoot their faces off instead. Honestly, the ship is filled to the brim with enemies, so it takes a bit of time to get through all of them. Having killed them all off, we can pull the lever and release all the slaves being kept inside, which is exactly what we needed to do. This will once more garner us good moral points with Gyul towards the good ending of the Caspian level, which, like I've mentioned before, each one of the bigger levels that have open world sections all have a separate ending that can be received for them. Outside the big slaver ship, we do also find a note. It's a chart of paper written by someone, seemingly a tribal. Now, this is the person apparently who sent that poor kid that we found dead inside the hangar much earlier at the airbase. Apparently, there are tons of resources buried underground at the airbase, and these guys want to secretly get it all for themselves without other tribals or the Baron hearing about it, which makes sense. So the people we ran into earlier that came there are most likely the same people. At least that's the way I figured this. The way we have no benefit from this information, so we ignore it and instead find ourselves heading towards a big fat tower. Anna had previously mentioned that there is a sniper's nest on the top of it, and she wasn't wrong. Turn off the fucking light. What's wrong with you? Now, these fucks don't play around, and they will keep shooting at us until we take them all down one by one, leaving only the sniper at the top. Now, killing him gives us the sniper rifle that he was using. However, more reinforcements will suddenly appear out of thin air. While I did want to enjoy the view here, I instead ziplined over towards Anna's old base, which is now abandoned, and instead rushed towards the Aurora in our used car. Huh. Very small detail, but apparently if you shoot these things, they will explode or even burn. Kind of funny. The Aurora itself is being hit by a massive sandstorm, but luckily the others took shelter inside of a nearby broken down railway station. It seems Alyosha and Stepan aren't doing too hot, if you catch my drift. We also give Miller the map analysis data before talking to Nastya. We hand her a custom-made traditional water pouch, which we received from Gyul earlier at the spider nest when we brought her the parent photo.
Wow, thank you! Look, Grandpa Yermak, I have my own canteen now.
Well, now we'll have to ask for some water. Then you'll have your own untouchable reserve.
Now that the storm has settled down, we hop into our car and keep exploring. I even run into what seems like a tribal execution pit. There are bodies littering one of the stone walls, and if we hurry up and take down the guards inside, we can save one of the innocent locals that is actually standing above us. However, heading up to where his body was located, it lays there motionless. He even wrote a letter to us, a death note, if you will. I mean, that's not on the nose at all, is it? Thanking us for saving him, but he was essentially already dead, in his own words. In the sense that he had already betrayed his own people, and so he didn't feel like he deserved to live. Honestly, these smaller stories flesh out this space so much more, and make my hatred towards the Baron also keep growing as I'm exploring. Checking a nearby tunnel, we also run into a fucking snake! This thing is guarding something useless, just some ammo, and will bite the shit out of you if you get too close, so it's best to just aim, point, and shoot. After a good old quick nap, we go outside and, well, we find some old buses that were left by the bandits. I tried to get into one of them, but it's impossible, so we just take our regular truck and head to find our boy Damir once more.
How are the guys doing with no water? While you were away, I scouted it out a bit.
Now that we're with Damir, we have a plan to steal some water from a giant reservoir held by the Baron. Now, we need this water for the Aurora, so we can get the hell out of this shithole, and, well, we can't really do that because we're kind of stuck at the moment. And we also need water for the guys who've gotten heat strokes back at the train. Now, the path leading towards the reservoir is treacherous, and we have to walk through a canyon and some caves to get there. Along the way, we also see cave paintings made by the locals and slaves, who only seem to know this sort of world. They know very little of what came before. Damir even points out that we've sort of reversed back to being cavemen again in this era. At one point, we find an underground city that existed at some point in history, but now it's mostly just overran by humanobots, which will attack us in massive droves. We can blow them up when they're close enough to the geysers that are shooting out the crude oil. This is really helpful as it stops them from overwhelming us, but eventually, once we've killed all of them off, we can crawl through a small space and find the water supply. Once again, Damir points out to us to avoid killing any of the slaves, as they're just young and they don't really know what they're doing, and they're simply forced to be here as such. Now, of course, since my goal was to get the best ending in the game, I made sure to carefully traverse and make my way around, only knocking down the evil tribals and bandits, avoiding killing any of the slaves along the way. And the first section here requires just avoiding enemies and climbing some stairs, but after that, it's mostly just crawling and sneaking underneath some bushes. Towards a doggy that's guarding some captured people. Now, we can throw some knives at this doggy and kill him, which, yes, don't come at me, okay? Don't get angry at me. But either way, if we take the dog out, we can free them and gain a lot of good moral points towards the good ending. Making it to the top of the reservoir, we can open the gates, and now we gotta make our escape. With the water tank fully loaded and Damir driving the truck, we have to jump on and get out of here. So only thing that remains now is to get the fuck out and have a nice little rest.
Well, that was a clean operation. You should have seen their mugs when I started the car. Well, at least we didn't hurt the slaves. Looks like they aren't giving chase. Time to get back to the Aurora. You tired? All right, brother. Have some rest.
Dude, what's going on outside? It sounds like I'm in an American high school. Holy shit. Well, looks like the Baron sent some of his lackeys to attack the Aurora. Apparently, this group is just a preliminary group because the rest of his army is fighting some sort of raid. So quickly, we just walk around them as a sandstorm is outside and take them down one by one. The battle doesn't last long, and once the dust has settled, we find that all of our friends are still alive. We have now made a final decision. We'll have to go with Gyul and the others to grab another wagon that's being held at the Baron's fortress. But to enter it, we need her to show us the secret entrance inside of his building. Leading us to a weird drainage pipe, she once again reiterates that if we're going down this path to avoid killing any of the slaves here, as they're just workers, they're young and they're brainwashed. And abiding by this, I try sneaking by quickly and try not to be noticed, which doesn't end up working. So instead, I just dash and run past all of them instead of firing a single bullet, which is the best method to avoid accidentally killing these guys.
Miller here. Aurora is ready to set out. What's your situation?
Reaching the Baron's entrance, his tower is large and spans all around us. In the distance, we can see oil rigs that are either currently in use or were used at some point in the past to drill for oil. Using our free camera mod, we can get closer and see what actually exists here. Mostly it's nothing, just empty space in this area, as it most likely was never meant to be accessed anyways, but it's kind of fun to see some of these hidden parts of the game that are out of bounds for regular players. However, turns out though that we can't open the gate, and instead we hear from the Baron telling us some nasty details.
We have things to discuss.
Just you listen to that bastard talk. A complete about-face. And we did throw a wretched into his plans big time.
Point the gun down and come up. Otherwise we'll have a pointless bloodbath on our hands. Open the gate and let our guest in!
Alright, he's invited us inside, and naturally, like any good guest, I will oblige. On the way up, we need to holster our gun, but the funny thing is, if we wanted to, we could blast our way through this entire building. Like, it's odd. I always assumed you were not able to shoot these guys as you're walking up to the Baron's room at the top of the building, but it turns out you can. I just never did it because you have an option of either punching and killing one of the Baron's subordinates while he's treating a woman poorly, or the ones that are hurting the innocent slaves, but I just never did it when I walked up the building. But you can do it. You can start shooting everyone here and killing all of the Baron's men. And doing this will just cause the cutscene that plays when we meet the Baron in a second to not happen. But in my case, I decided to go the pacifist route and not kill anyone. Reaching the top, we enter the Baron's domain, and I do have to blur some big boobas here anyways, but either way, talking to him, the Baron is a classic maniacal sociopath. He's just looking for power, and he tries to sway us into his favor before threatening us with a gun.
And prosper. Now.
Luckily, Gyul is here to save the day, and what follows is a massive shootout segment where we are stuck dealing with the Baron's troops. Also, a really fun little detail is that on the walls, there is Easter eggs for the developers from 4A Games. Yeah, for some reason, these guys actually straight up had themselves in the game on these paintings, and these even exist in Metro 2033 and Last Light. Now, I'm playing the game in this case in standard mode, but I've also played in hardcore, where these guys will keep pummeling you over and over again, and they'll be very, very strong and hard to deal with. So, fair warning, if you're playing in hardcore mode, you should have saved up a lot of bullets for this battle, because it's gonna take a while to kill them all. Lucky for us though, eventually Damir arrives, and together we can smash through the door, witnessing the Baron holding Gyul, about to let go of her to her death.
So, you wanted to create a new world with this? Not happening! You're misguided attempt!
I got her! Take the Baron!
It's the strongest who survives!
Your head's in the way.
And so, there it is. Anna shot that old fart straight in the head, and now we get the second ending for this section. Damir actually comes with us. See, had we, instead of saving the slaves all around the map and been doing all the good deeds, just gone ahead and shot everything and everyone in our path and killed the slaves, we would have gotten the so-called bad ending. And what happens in the bad ending is that Damir would have stayed behind with Gyul to help out his people, as he is from this part of the world to start with. However, since we did good things and we got good moral points, Damir actually comes with us. Now, I do think Damir staying behind with Gyul would make the most sense because he'd want to be with his own people and to help them out. However, he instead remains with us on the Aurora.
Damn coughing. We've left those sands long ago, and it still persists. What does Crest even smoke? It's terrible.
So, we're back on the Aurora once more. Anna seems to still have a very rough cough, which isn't good, and it's starting to become worrisome. We can spend some time sitting with her and just having conversations. She speaks of her mother, who apparently took her own life before the war. Apparently her dream was to go to the ocean and settle down there. Anna wishes for this same dream, a dream of peace and ocean air to clean her lungs. Though I doubt her lungs will be clean if she keeps huffing those cigarettes.
So different with my parents. It was bad. Did I ever tell you why my mom died? Of course I didn't. It was because of Dad. He used to be even harsher back then. He used to come home from the barracks and reach for the bottle while taking off his boots. They'd quarrel, and then he'd stop appearing for a time. And while he was away, she'd start drinking too, and crying when she was sober. She'd feel better, would get kinda dreamy when drunk.
Checking the radio, we can actually listen in and hear from Gyul. Turns out that the rebellion against the Baron isn't over just yet, and because Saul, the guy who we kept alive, stayed alive, well, he has tried installing the fake Baron in his place, with Gyul managing to start an uprising using the locals, which is a tiny detail that we can learn from just listening in on the radio, and it just again fleshes out the world. Leaving Anna, we run into the others on board the train. Celebrations are taking place as Stepan plans to marry Katya. It's actually kind of funny because at this point, over half a year has passed since we set out on this journey into Exodus. It would only make sense then that changes would happen along the way, and in this case, love was able to flourish.
Now I simply must talk.
What did I miss?
About Stepan.
You should have seen them dance.
Incredible.
Don't you worry, you'll get another chance.
A moment of your attention, please.
Miller then tells us something amazing. Apparently, they have been able to find a location outside the hands and grip of radiation, a place at Lake Baikal. Lake Baikal is an actual place in Russia, and apparently is the only place left that they were able to find that has beautiful and clear air and no radiation whatsoever. But before you know it, a new obstacle appears.
Gorka! Gorka!
Oh! Be careful, people!
Anna, please hold on.
What's happening? What is it, Anna?
It's that cough. Gotcha. Do something, please.
Don't crowd her. Give her air.
Anna isn't doing too good. She's sick. She says that apparently the doctor back in Yamantau at the cannibal camp, meaning she might not have a long time left if her lungs stay this way. The reason this all happened is because she fell into the ammo depot back at the Volga. The radiation there ruined her lungs. Miller is pissed, and everyone is hoping that perhaps us entering the forest, the Taiga specifically, and nearby the river, will get her some fresh air into the lungs. But according to Katya, there is a drug that was developed before and during the war which can save people from damaged lung tissue, specifically an anti-radiation drug that would help her out. However, she doesn't know what it's called or where to find it. We can walk around the train once more and talk to everyone, but before you know it, we've got a mission. Miller wants us, as well as Alyosha, to go on a reconnaissance mission and check the train tracks up ahead. So, we do exactly that. Along the way, though, it seems like weird noises are Along the way, though, a lot of weird, strong growling noises can be heard. Alyosha is just excited to look for some poontang, aka he wants some girls, and before you know it, of course, we get the shit knocked out of us. Alrighty, my lungs feel like they've been through Snoop Dogg's mansion. We were saved by that lady, but we have lost all of our equipment. The nearby house features a architecture that heavily reminds me of the ones found in places like Russia, for example, and even parts of Finland and Sweden. Wooden homes, giving off a very peculiar aesthetic and feeling, which I personally loved seeing in Exodus. The entire vibe of this place reminds me far more of Stalker as opposed to the usual vibe I get from the Metro games when we're stuck in Moscow. Because we're so accustomed to being down in those tunnels that now seeing these more traditional style of houses is honestly a breath of fresh air, if you catch my drift. We can also pick up a crossbow and check the house. Inside one of them, we find a strung up body warning us, "Marauders, same will happen to all of you." And we also find a bandit's body just kind of shoved into a furnace, I guess? Yeah, basically the bandits in this area get their asses whooped very easily, so we should be careful. This guy's even shot in the family jewels, holy shit. And holy crap, is that a fucking arrow? Okay, clearly these assholes are not messing around. And looking around this place, we can check the forest and see some wolves trying to eat a stranger. Now, if we kill the wolves, we can learn that this guy's a bandit. He has been strung up and is about to die and was left here by someone. But luckily for him, we are here to save the day. We can either leave him or cut him loose, and because I need good moral points, I free him, and he tells us something interesting. He wants to kill off the forest people here, the same individuals that got us out of the river and also the same ones that shot the arrow earlier. He hates them, but we don't really have business with them to begin with. Climbing over a big wooden log, we find what seems to be a sacrificial offering place, which has some children's drawings, which is oddly specific. Even further exploration explains why that's the case, because there is a school here. There is a school, and outside even features these statues, and one of them looks like it's of Lenin of all people, as well as multiple classrooms. This particular one looks abandoned, but also aspects of it look somewhat used. Reading one of the notes here, it's written by a girl named Larissa. It's clear that the children living here got stuck in school in the area as their parents never came to pick them up. And when the bombs had dropped, they were all stuck here. Most likely because their parents had perished. It's kind of sad reading the note the girl left, where her only wish is to see her family again. Checking the rest of the rooms in the class, we also find some Easter eggs of the developers from 4A Games, just pictures, and these exist everywhere. You even saw these pictures of the 4A developers back at the Baron's mansion as well. Leaving the building and trying to cross the bridge, we encountered the people that have threatened us with the arrows. They call themselves pirates. This is due to them as children playing as pirates, and now they behave as such, which is kind of fucked up.
Aye, another step and you die. Yeah, so beat it, you scallywag. If you know what's good for your ground-loving ass. Even one of you drifters we caught today is too much.
Jumping down the bridge, we can look through a hollowed-out tree. Inside of it are a bunch of toys. It's honestly really sad. These poor children were stuck here alone, still behaving like kids all this time, and having to grow up without actual proper influence. We also enter a nearby school office building, and we find another cassette player.
It's been 2 months already. Nobody came for the kids. Viking and Tusha aren't coming back either. The dam workers told they'd give them the lift to the city, but I should have used my authority to stop them from trying. But back then, I still harbored hopes for evacuation too.
This time we hear the teacher. This is one of the people that apparently took up the mantle of leader in this place and taught all the kids here how to handle themselves, to hunt and survive. It also seems clear that the teacher quickly realized things had gone to shit, so he just put all his effort into raising the children properly and teaching them survival instead of trying to reach out to the outside world. We also climb a hidden ladder and find a new crossbow equipped with a scope. Now before leaving this place, we also go into the basement really quickly, and there are snakes littering this whole fucking area. Yeah, I forgot to point out, but there are so many bloody snakes in this part of the game specifically, and they are really annoying. One thing I'll point out about this specific level, the Taiga, is that first of all, just like the other places we've explored, it's also based on a real-life location, that being the Taiga of Siberia, which are also known as a boreal forest or a snow forest. That's what a taiga is, a type of biome only found in the most northern parts of our planet. Another thing that differentiates the Taiga level is the fact that unlike the Volga and the Caspian, the Taiga is far more linear of the map. We have to focus way more on stealth and survival over exploration, which gives this entire place a more different vibe than we've had from the previous locations we've been to. And we can see this survival and stealth right here. We have to sneak around the pirates and carefully traverse around them to make it all the way to the top of the tower, where we can use the radio and reach out to Miller and the others.
We keep trying to contact you. What happened? Artyom, please. Come in. Over. Are you two alright? God. Come in, guys. Please. Over.
Don't worry so much.
We also find a note written by the pirates. They all signed a pledge. All 147 of them signed it, where they all say they plan to become stronger and more powerful to survive in this world. Meaning these guys are not the only group around here. There might be some others too. Using the rope at the top of the building, we can cross over the river without being hurt, only to witness this shit show. Yeah, your eyes aren't mistaken. There are wolves and a giant mutated bear all freely roaming around in this area. And yes, we can run into all of them at the same time. So best course of action is to get up into these custom-made huts and tree houses that the children have constructed to essentially use for hunting and to avoid the wolves as well as the bear. The wolves run around in packs hunting for deer, and you gotta be careful because the deer can actually trample you. They can run into you and destroy you, and the wolves will attack you if you shoot. There is only one local pirate here which we can knock the fuck out and steal from. Near his home, there's also a strange tunnel as well. Trying to crawl around this little shithole doesn't really feel worth it, but who knows? And ooh, look, a strange basket, and holy fucking shit. See, the game does love using these cheap jump scares, but also I have gotten used to being able to just grab all kinds of resources so easily, so it's kind of on me for not being cautious in this situation in particular. Now, exiting the cave, we find ourselves on the opposite side. Now, in my first playthrough, I never even knew this cave existed to begin with, and there was a cave exit to start with at all. So I just ended up spending quite some time here checking each one of the tree houses in the area to learn more about this place. One note, again, speaks on how the teacher taught the kids to smoke their meat so that it lasts longer over winter. And we can also witness the wolves hunting after waves of deer underneath us, as well as, of course, the bear pummeling through the place too, which I shoot at for fun. Nearby the river, we also find an old diary written by one of the pirates who left the others, as he was tired of killing bandits because he simply didn't enjoy it and decided to say, fuck it, I'm becoming a fisherman, which is very based, but we can even walk up and talk to him. He seems afraid at first, but if we just leave him be, everything should be fine. Trying to climb out of this place and taking a new road leads us straight into a trap. We are caught by the pioneers, and this is the other group which the pirates are arguing with. The pioneers followed the teacher's words of peace and prosperity, whereas the pirates wanted to split off and fight for their survival against the bandits and explore the outside world.
Him to the camp with the first one. Hey, wait a minute. You pioneers already have one, and this is our catch.
He got caught on our turf.
The net is mine, so bite me.
Oh yeah? Well, why did you set the trap on our turf then? Besides, you already have an intruder's backpack.
I dived for the backpack, and you chickened out.
Oh, I chickened out?
Now, while they've been arguing, the big fat bear has showed up, and he's known as the Forest Guardian, and he just kind of kills all of them, leaving only one alive. Now, talking to this fella, he thinks we mean him harm, but we don't, and so we can sneak away.
Skill to get away from the master of the forest. This means you're dangerous. Damn it. Fucking backpack. I got greedy.
And so we can leave him behind for now. We sneak up to the pioneers' camp, and listening in, they heard that the bears attacked. They also heard that a bunch of their comrades have been killed. We can use that nearby cave to hide from them, but for some reason, as they're running past us, one of them stops and tries to check us, which freaked me out. I honestly never expected him to check this random little cave section, and it just made for a very tense moment. Camp of the Pioneers consists of a giant made-up wall. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Attack on Titan wall, don't ask me why. But either way, entering the place, if we want to make sure we get the best ending, we need to be careful as we tread through here to not accidentally kill anyone. So rushing and face punching everyone is basically the best thing we can do. At the center room on the top of the camp, it features a pioneer inside of it. It's a sort of classroom, and the guy seems pissed off, but talking to him, we learned that our friend Alyosha is in this area, but now he's escaped. They had him as a prisoner at one point, but eventually he got away. With this knowledge, we knock the shit out of this dude and make our way out. Now, I try again to avoid any killing blows while I'm here, but I will say the design of this camp is really cool. Just seeing the environmental detail that went into this place is honestly amazing. You can see how the kids sort of adopted what they were taught by the teacher and even created classrooms just like the ones they used back before the bombs dropped. Making it to the top of the pioneer's nest, we also run into a weird little, like, I don't know, bird, and he's just talking to us, which is kind of funny. But jumping down, we get bit by another fucking snake, which, yes, there's a lot of snakes in this motherfucking plane, and they just make me motion sick. We also eventually run into two options. We have a choice to make. If we go to the left, we'll continue on the main story plot. Or we can check the scary tunnel on the right. And naturally, like any character in a horror movie, I'm gonna check the creepy tunnel. And of course, okay, clearly shit's going down here. The body in front of us is belonging to one of the pioneers, and nearby is also a note by another corpse that says that they got stuck with about 30 bandits, and that they may not be able to make it out alive, but hopefully that this note will reach their comrades. Sneaking up there, we have an option here. We can either go upstairs and take out every single one of the bandits, starting with the ones keeping a few of the pioneers hostages, which, mind you, we don't have to do. But the next thing we can do is either leave this place and let the pioneer just die, or take out every single one of the bandits. And listen, okay, I love Metro, but holy shit, having to keep everybody alive all the time is really boring. So when the game gives me an opportunity to kill a bunch of people, I just go for it. Their camp is massive, and they even have an area they control down by the beachfront with even a boat and water in it too. So I just decide to go ham on everyone. Alright, after that giant massacre, we can now go and help the captured pioneer that's calling for us.
So you're not one of them, I see. Thanks for saving us, stranger.
Again, we have the option of just leaving him or saving him. But of course, if we do release him, we will get more good moral points. And I'm gonna be real for a second. I'm not gonna lie. The moral system in Metro Exodus is kind of fucking dumb at times. In this case, it makes no sense. Like, why exactly would we have to kill every bandit in this area after already having saved one singular bandit from the wolves early on in this level? And now we can instead take the life of 30 of them. Sometimes the logic doesn't always follow. Like, you save one guy, and that's good moral points, but you kill 30 to save another one, that's also good moral points. It doesn't really make sense. Sometimes it just does not compute with me, but it is what it is. Finally, we're back on our main path, and I get bit by a fucking snake again, dude. Either way, we can approach the church now. The entrance has some Molotov cocktails, which can be handy and also seems kind of ominous that we find them here. And this whole place gives off that boss battle time. And it's because that's exactly what happens again. This is the mutated bear. It's essentially the Forest Guardian, and it's the same one from Metro Last Light. I mean, not the exact same one, but it's the same kind of enemy type that we fought back in that game. It is a boss battle, and the only way to take this thing down is to use Molotov cocktails to kill it. Now, I'll be honest, this is a super easy battle if you play on the standard difficulty, but takes way longer in hardcore mode because you have way less ammo, way less Molotov cocktails, and just way less resources to take it down. But honestly, just shooting it is enough. I will say, this battle was way harder in Last Light, because in Last Light you were being attacked by a bunch of watchmen at the same time, which made that battle way more difficult. But after shooting it enough times, it will freak out and run away, and we can now climb the church. This is once more just a place to take a break and heal ourselves up, as well as craft new arrows and continue our journey.
Freeze, Drifter! So, we meet again? Though I bet you don't remember who dragged you out of the water. My name is Volga, by the way. Was it you fighting the Master of the Forest? Awesome. Our hunters had been staying away from him for years.
And hey, we'll run into our savior from the river. It is Olga. Now, she has ran into Alyosha. We can learn far more about what happened here from her. It seems that the teacher, as well as some of the instructors of the school and the camp here, all took care of the kids and raised them after the bombs had dropped. But while the girls wanted to follow the leader's teachings, the boys wanted to explore and head to the city nearby to find survivors. You can actually listen to the teacher's words from a cassette here with Olga, and talking to her, you can do it for a long time. Like, she has so much to talk about, and if you really want an in-depth detail of what happened here and more information on the Taiga level, you can sit here for a long time just listening to her. Leaving the church, we can also find graves belonging to the instructors, which used to work here before. And it's clear they all lost their lives while simply trying to keep the kids alive. Heading down the church, we can also take a nap inside of a gazebo that's overlooking the river. But there is something a little bit different here. Unlike any other level where we sleep through the day and just lay down in whatever makeshift bed that exists, here we actually remain seated. We actually sit up and don't go fully to sleep, which means that in this case, Artyom is in a far more urgent situation. And it's honestly these small details that show how unique this game is. Like, Artyom isn't fully ready to go to sleep and he's not ready to waste time, which is kind of a cool detail. He is so on edge now, and it's because he needs to rush to save Anna. There's also a note found here at the gazebo which mentions some of the pirates remaining at a nearby lumber mill to keep the bog mutants in place, that being the giant shrimps that we've kind of fought off before. Apparently, the others all ran away, and whoever was remaining there was hoping to keep the bog mutants back so they wouldn't overrun the other guys' camp. So, we make sure to once again steal a boat and fuck up some of the pirates. Also, I love the design of this area. I think it looks really cool, and honestly, it's one of those things that I just really enjoyed. The fact that, like, they actually put the effort in to make this proper swamp. But I will say, though, that it is clear why the swamp is here. It's because the dam nearby, because there's a giant dam, is going to fall apart, and we learned this a little bit later from one of our friends. But for now, we can see this environmental detail pretty clear in this swamp. It never really existed before, but now it does exist because of the flooding. And I like how Metro Exodus does this, like, environmental storytelling so well. Like, I really like they put the effort in to make the environmental side of it actually really good. Even though I freaking hate the goddamn, like, pirates here. They're so annoying to fight. We're also able to now open up a gate that leads us to a nearby lumber mill. The same lumber mill we read about in the notes. As well as climbing one of the tree houses and sliding over to the other side, we are surrounded by bog mutants all around this place. These things will shoot guzzling ooze on us, but we need to climb the lumber mill, otherwise we are going to be screwed. So, while the rain is pouring, we are turning on generators outside as well as activating the electrical current inside, allowing us to use the elevator to go to the top. However, once we get to the top of the building, it almost seems like somebody's still here. And would you believe it, there is someone here. It's the Admiral. He is stuck in a wheelchair, unable to use his legs. And he used to be one of the pirates, and the note from the gazebo is probably from one of the corpses seated alongside the Admiral, up in his little nest.
That all those spineless worms and wannabe pirates are all dead. Am I right? Don't bother answering. Everyone knows I'm right. And good riddance, I say.
We once again have an option here. We can either sit down with the Admiral, or we can just choose to leave. Whatever choice we make, it doesn't really matter, but I do take a seat with him and listen to his tale.
Yeah! Trying our best, Admiral, sir! Quit your yapping. Making a worse racket than the damn aqua's in heat.
Having a smoke and a drink of some of his swill. It's a somber moment. It's clear that the Admiral is a bit crazy, or more accurately, mentally ill. He's lonely and stuck here without any way to escape. He talks to corpses, assuming they're his friends. But they're all dead. And he seems to hate the pirates for being little bitches and not staying to fight the bog mutants with him. He even seems to fancy Olga of all people. And we're able to grab a guitar from one of the corpses and play a little song for him.
The way I like it. This tea is as good for smoking as it is for brewing. It can also cure any sickness and solve your marital problems. I like it a lot. And my boys here don't have any problems with it. Not anymore.
Man, I don't know about you guys, but I actually felt really sad for the Admiral. It genuinely kind of, I don't know, it hit me in the feels, okay? It really hit me in the feels, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be honest, I just had a somber moment of sadness as I sat with the Admiral. This man was no more than a child when all this began. He grew up in this fantasy of sorts, only to be abandoned here and left to die. A child born during and out of war. Once abandoned by his family and now again by the people he grew up alongside. He even asks us to stay with him here forever. He says he has enough food and everything. But as he falls asleep, it's our time to leave. I genuinely felt sad here. There was no reason to even listen to him or even stay by him. We gained nothing. But in sitting here and doing this with him, it leaves this sort of feeling of how harsh reality is. And it punches you right in the gut. It shows you how brutal the world of Metro has become. Leaving his nest, we instead head away from the mill and towards a government tunnel. This entire section is filled to the brim with spiders all crawling and squeaking at us. For the most part, this entire tunnel section and sequence is just another callback to the original claustrophobic feeling we had exploring the Metro in the original games, being stuck amongst the dark and moist walls and noises echoing from every corner. But eventually our escape does happen, and Alyosha is here to meet us.
Artyom? Damn, you're alive! I'm so glad to see you. And I just managed to get in contact with the Aurora.
Together we observe the giant dam nearby. Apparently the dam will soon burst, and the moment it does, well, it will flood and kill everything under it, including every single one of the kids, the bandits, the pirates, the pioneers, everyone below it. Talking to Alyosha, it's clear that he seems to fancy Olga. Checking the houses also, we find more resources as well as letters left behind by people, including pirates that made it all the way to the city and pirates that made it to the dam and saw what dangers lurked behind it. However, trying to cross over a large gap, the bear appears once more.
Hey, Vsauce, Michael here.
Alright, this is our final showdown with Winnie the Pooh, and the best weapon against this big boy is still the Molotov cocktails, as they do the most amount of damage over time, with bullets being shot also doing enough work. And holy shit, just as we're about to fall off the edge with the bear, Alyosha saves us. And Olga will also appear, and if we have a good ending, then she won't be aggressive towards us, and Alyosha will warn her that the dam is going to burst, and they all need to escape.
Olga! Remember what I told you! Get them out of the valley! There's death behind the dam!
But if we got the bad ending, she'll be aggressive and threatening us, and even shooting at us as we try to make the escape over the giant gap and hopping onto the Aurora. Back on board, things are looking bad though. Anna is just getting worse, and everyone else aboard the Aurora seems to be exhausted. The only one in a good mood is Alyosha, as we can hear him talking to Olga on the radio, reaching out to check if they made it out of the dam safely. Miller, on the other hand, is pissed. Idiot tells us that there is a trained snow attachment which we can put at the front of the Aurora to handle the winter, but that's found in Novosibirsk. There should also be access to a special drug, an anti-radiation drug, which was developed there that can be used to save Anna there too. But Novosibirsk on the satellite photos doesn't have any radioactivity readings. This either means that the place is so irradiated that it can't be measured, or it's not irradiated at all. We just do not know. We're now able to walk around the train once more. This time we listen in on the radio. We can hear a child calling to his commander, his dad. Whoever this kid is, it seems that he has been left alone, abandoned as well, just like the Admiral.
Glednikov, do you read me? Please come in. Dad, please. Come in. Over. Older, this is fine. I can't keep the receiver on for too long. We'll be back for the next...
Well, Miller made a decision. The goal is for him and Artyom to head into Novosibirsk, the dead city, to hunt for the drug, while the others are gonna look for the train attachment. While the others are gonna look for the snowplow for the Aurora. As we close into Novosibirsk, the outside of it resembles that of Moscow, a desolate and abandoned place. Together with Miller, we're going to head out and search for the drugs. But before we leave, Katya lets Artyom see Anna. She's in bad shape, and as we sit there looking at her, we know what we have to do. The more I think about it, Metro Exodus really is a wife simulator more than anything. Either way, with Miller, we get fully equipped for the last time, grabbing our best guns and armor, and we take the bus in the back of the Aurora and head out. The streets of Novosibirsk are cold and empty. Cars are littering the entire place, and lucky for us, there's a convenient path made empty for us as we go through. We're trying to find a metro entrance here, but it's either frozen over or filled to the brim with ice and snow. Honestly, I think it's kind of funny in movies and video games when there is an apocalypse and cars are kind of piled up on the highway, but somehow there is a convenient path that the main characters can always take, which is really ridiculous. However, in our case, Miller actually explains that a tank must have made this path possible, so it gives an actual reasoning for our path being cleared. Eventually, though, we hit a roadblock and had to dredge through the snow with our pal Miller. And the thing that blocked us was also a tank, so what he predicted was actually true. Trudging through the snow together, we eventually find a proper metro entrance. It seems like Miller and Artyom are both happy to return to a more familiar setting. But as per usual, there are mutants littering this place. This time, it's the mole mutants. They kind of remind me a little bit of a mix between the Watchmen and the Nosalis. These things have big fat noses and are relentless in their attacks. Luckily, we are both fully stacked with guns, so we're able to kill them off without too much trouble. We also find another postcard. This one is of Novosibirsk. The bottom of the tunnel is flooded, and something strange can be heard from the water. Luckily, we don't have to see what that thing is just yet. We also uncover what looks to be an execution pit, similar to the ones back in Moscow. The insignia on the wall is of Oskom, the military unit stationed in Novosibirsk, which can be found all over. We also find another notice from Oskom. It's a paper mentioning rioters who had tried to rise up against the army controlling the metro and the city. And well, we see how that ended for the rioters. Overlooking one section of the tunnel, it's clear a war took place here. The army, or the Oskom unit, must have fought against its own people. The ones who started the riots, the tanks, the corpses, the guns, the shells littered the battlefield in front of us. And just like in the previous Metro games, as we walk, memories and ghosts of those who lost their lives here will flash by us, leaving a grim reminder of what once took place here. Also, hey yo, what is hiding under there?
There, again.
With all the mutants killed off, we open and climb the metro stairs leading to an office. The letters inside are signed by Colonel Klebnikov. This is the same name that was used by the child on the radio earlier when we were on board the Aurora, so maybe they know each other. For a tiny moment, I actually get peace as we exit the tunnels and get some relatively fresh air, I guess. I mean, how can you call it fresh in this place? And as we try to open one of the drainage pipes, we find a kid. He freaks out and a chase ensues. We are pushing everything out of our way, trying to catch up to him in time. Reaching a dead end, we can't see the kid. But if we look around carefully and check a trash can, we find him inside.
Oh, grab him, Artyom! Stop! Where do you think you're going? Finally.
He's freaked out, but he refers to himself under a military rank of private. This kid is Kirill, and he's the same one we heard on the radio before we even got to Novosibirsk. His father was the colonel working for the Oskom military unit and also the man in charge of the tunnels. A quick side note is that in the first DLC for Metro Exodus called Two Colonels, we actually play as Colonel Miller as well as Colonel Klebnikov, and we can see his backstory, but we'll look into that in the DLCs for Exodus at the end of the video. Either way, with Kirill together with us, we fight off some mutants and reach his base camp. His little hideout is self-sufficient. They grow their own vegetables, and it's clear Kirill was born in the metro and only knows it as home. He does tell us about the green stuff. This is apparently the medicine that we're looking for, and it's something that's been hoarded by the elite down in the tunnels. It's an anti-radiation medication that was created in Novosibirsk and used by the people here to stay alive. However, the people of the tunnels had started to run out of it, and due to this, they started riots and attacked the military that had been withholding resources to themselves, as well as for the higher-up people. This led to a war between the civilians and the military, which practically killed off and crippled both sides, and wiped out the entire population of the Novosibirsk metro. But we learned that there should be some medication left, and if we want to find it, we need to head to a nearby university to get our hands on the last of the green stuff left. We're also handed 2 doses of it by Kirill, one to Miller and one to Artyom, to make sure we stay alive. And it's kind of a given, because Novosibirsk at this point is quite possibly the most irradiated city in Russia in the games. During the events of the Metro Exodus, it is possibly 8 times more radiated than Moscow, and that means that we can't really spend a lot of time on the surface and need to stick to the tunnels as much as possible. This means that as we split away from Miller and he goes his way and we go our way, we need to be very careful. We need to avoid the surface at all costs, and instead get past all these mole mutants extremely carefully, or by blasting our way through too. However, our ammo supply is low, so it's best to be careful. We also find another boat. Using it, we can go through the flooded tunnel, but the mole rats as well as some new enemy types, that being these giant worms, will try to stop us. The worms are huge, and due to the insane amounts of radiations, that has caused them to mutate and overgrow to such an extreme level. Luckily, they aren't super difficult to kill, and they only take a few bullets to scare them off. However, that isn't ours or Artyom's biggest issue in here. The worms are not that big of a problem. It's more so the radiation, which is starting to seep through his gear, slowly starting to destroy his body, and even his mind. He's seeing visions of Anna, visions of the war that once took place here. We see how the army quite literally killed its own people and kept them stuck underground in the metro right as the bombs would be hitting.
We don't want trouble here. You got it. Great. Scanner. Metro entrance, 11 o'clock. Sabot. Target acquired. Sabot ready. Fire! Fuck! Into their own people!
Having made it out of the tunnels, we go and get closer and closer to the university. But as we try to enter it, more visions cloud our mind. Visions of Anna, visions of death. And so when we climb the roof, we meet an old friend of ours. It's the bloody mutated librarians, or at least I thought they were. Apparently these guys are not librarians that appeared back in Metro 2033 in the library segment. Rather, these guys are a new enemy type that are close to impossible to kill. They are the blind ones. Like I said, they're close to impossible to kill, but our advantage against them is the fact that they are gorilla-shaped creatures that are all blind. So they only really react to sound mainly, and as such it allows us to sneak by them much easier. But these aren't the librarians from Moscow. These are, like I said, the blind ones, and they are far more terrifying and intelligent than the enemies we've met before. This is because in the Metro universe, including the books apparently, the blind ones are able to telepathically communicate with their own kind, as well as humans. It also is possible that Artyom is just imagining them being this intelligent because he's just being fucked up by the radiation, but given their behavior back in Moscow, it's safe to assume they are slightly smarter than your average mutant at least. In our case, sneaking through this place is followed by further hallucinations and visions. There are several moments where we just need to carefully distract the blind ones as to avoid them attacking or noticing us, as well as trying to keep ourselves from going insane.
It's alright. I know you tried. I'm waiting for you. I want you to be there when... You are here. So nice. I'm sorry.
Finally, we reach the room. The antidote is here, but these fucking gorillas just do not want to let us go. After a lot of trials and tribulations, we have somehow survived the onslaught of the blind ones, and Miller finds us. Shoving us into the truck, he gives us the last bit of anti-radiation serum he had.
Stay with me. Hold on. Son. Just a minute. You'll get better now.
You found it, you did. Don't you dare die on me now. Don't even think about it. What would I tell her then, huh?
As we awaken, Kirill is in the driver's seat. Miller is on the other side, but he isn't moving. Kirill tells us that he tried to teach him how to drive before he went to sleep. So we get into the driver's space instead. We drive as Kirill speaks in amazement about the world beyond his home city. All we can do is sit in silence as the background music plays, which I want to quickly point out is also fantastic music. The Metro games have always had superb audio tracks and songs, which really fit with the theme and vibe of these games perfectly. The songs always match well with the tone. But as we reach the end of the road, Artyom climbs out of the truck and the Aurora finally appears. Our journey has reached its end. Now, the ending for Metro Exodus is split into two possible versions, the good and the bad. Now, to get the good ending, we needed to at least have 2 out of 3 of our friends remaining with us on the Aurora, that being Duke, Damir, and Alyosha. If only 1 or 0 of them stayed with us on the Aurora train, we'd get the bad ending. But because I kept every single one of them on board, they're all able to give Artyom their blood. By doing this, it helps them save Artyom. But in this ending, we see visions of Miller as he speaks to Artyom.
Will it save him?
It will. Keep him alive for a little longer.
Hello there, Artyom. How about we take a walk? Staying underground grew old.
That's it, Stepan. You can't give more.
Look! He's up! Can you hear me, Artyom?
Why did you stop? Didn't you always want to go outside? Didn't you open that airlock at the Botanical Gardens? This place is much better. Look, Artyom. Lake Baikal. Makes you believe real life is possible. Not the petty rat race we had back in the Metro. I just have to say, you were right, Artyom. Right for wanting to get us out, bring us here. And I, the old fool, I was simply afraid. Afraid of life, as I see now. This world is worth giving everything up for, Artyom. You were always ready, and I was too attached to my position in the rat race. I'm sorry. Sorry for what happened to Anna. Sorry for blaming you. Had I not pumped everyone up about the occupying forces, she'd never have fallen there.
Artyom, I beg you, don't die. Stay with me, please. I don't want a life if you're not a part of it. Can you hear me? Look at me, Artyom. Look at me, please.
Yes, about Anna. You will have to look out for her, now that I can't anymore. I don't care if you go to that ocean. Just stay with her.
I'm keeping her out. She can barely stand herself, but she's ready to give all her blood to him. At least the medicine helped. It's a miracle.
I have a daughter. But I also wanted a son. A really stubborn one, just like me. Like you. I really like this place. It's so clean. I'd like to stay here forever. Could you arrange that for me? And the most important thing, my time's up, Artyom. It's your turn now. Step up, lead them. Just remember that I created the Order to save people. All people, Artyom. Don't forget that. Because I somehow did. Goodbye, Commander. Time to wake up. Come on. Rise and shine, son.
The fever is subsiding. I think he's getting better. Now he needs some rest. You too, Anna. We've got hope now.
This ending left me crying. I had tears running down my face. As much as Miller was a boneheaded asshole at times, he was with us from the start. Since Metro 2033 has been on our side, fought with us, survived with us, and now here he is, at the end of the road, the last station for his journey, and he leaves us in charge, overlooking Lake Baikal, at the foot of a tree.
A home at the foot of a hill, overlooking a lake. A home where we could raise our children, who will be born not in the damp and dark tunnels, but under blue sky and bright sun.
Ladies and gentlemen, as the ranking officer, I propose a motion to entrust the duty of commanding the Order to Artyom. Unanimously approved. So, what would your orders be, sir?
I would say we all go home. But this home seems too large for just us. You know, the Colonel once told me, he created the Order to save people. All of them. I say it's time we perform this duty.
Our journey has reached its conclusion, and man did it leave an impact on me. Losing Miller genuinely felt heart-wrenching. The other ending of the game is the bad one, and in this one, the same thing takes place, but instead of seeing Lake Baikal and burying Miller, Artyom also dies, and in his nightmare, we see his friends, Eugene back at his own station. We also find Bourbon aboard the Aurora. You guys may remember Bourbon from Metro 2033. He died early on, or at least we assume he died. He also appears here, mocking Artyom. And at the end, we see Khan at the helm of the train.
Hello, Artyom. I didn't really expect to see you here. I thought you had some other fate, or a greater one. I remember when you were but a boy from the exhibition, dreaming of one day remembering the face of his mother. Was that why you opened the airlock at the Botanical Gardens? Look at you now. I'll be returning to the Metro soon. But you... The sun never rises here, Artyom. You can't stop this train. Can't ever get off it. There are not stations in this world. He who has enough courage and patience to stare into the darkness for his entire life shall be the first to see the flash of light. Remember that? Why then... Not enough patience?
So what if there are no stations here? We don't want to stop anyway.
Miller eventually also kicks us out of the Aurora and leaves us at the station for Lake Baikal. And we see as both Artyom and Miller are buried side by side overlooking the lake. And instead of Artyom doing the final speech, it's Anna speaking of her love for him and bursting her emotions.
It's not fair. We found a place to be happy, and now you leave? We couldn't have the life we dreamed of, but you went and gave up everything for me. I hate you for that. I hate to see you go. I hate to stay here alone. But I will. Because I love you. I love you so much. Goodbye, Artyom.
Both these endings are heart-wrenching and will tug at you. There's an interesting element that is sort of mirrored with the start and the end of this game. At the beginning of the journey, Artyom was needing blood from the others to survive the radiation poisoning that he received back in Moscow. We are once more needing their blood to stay alive at the end of the game. A perfect roundabout way to conclude this story. Personally, I like both endings, but I prefer the good one as Artyom gets to live and Miller has his send-off, though the bad ending does carry its own merits as well. If you had the patience, for example, through your journey and knocked people out instead of killing them, then the good ending makes the most sense, and the words of what Khan said to you in the bad ending will echo through the entirety of your journey. Did you have enough patience, my friend? Because that's what the game is all about. Do you have the patience to go the righteous and proper way? Or will you go down the path of massacring everyone just to get to your destination faster, leading to your eventual death? And something about the good ending just feels the best. Having Miller finally accepting Artyom and his son, as well as Miller in the end wanting to save everyone. And you can see this by the fact that he tried to teach the kid Kirill to drive the truck when he knew his own fate was death, as a precaution to make sure the child would at least stay alive in case he couldn't be around to save him. And so that concludes Metro Exodus' main story. But there are still two major things we need to look at. First of all is the many Easter eggs and secrets found in the game, and finally the DLCs. Alright, so starting with the Easter eggs, we have the following ones present in the game. One of them is at the Autumn train station. So during the Autumn level in the game, which is when you're stuck on the train early on, we will pass by a train station on the right side. If you look at the right time, you can actually spot a man standing at the station waiting for a train. This is possibly one of the escaped slaves from the previous area. And on the opposite side, there will also be a dog waiting alongside him, which is maybe kind of cute because they're trying to reach each other. Also, you guys may remember back at Caspian, inside of the comm center, we found that little reference to, 2001 September, if you know what I mean. But there is actually a few more references. One of them, for example, is a section specifically related to the 1991 Soviet coup d'etat attempt that took place. And another one will specifically be for March 2010 and May 2013, which is the release dates of Metro 2033 and Last Light. There's also an interesting thing found in the University Institute in Novosibirsk. There's basically COCK condoms which can be found, which I'm not going to go deep into that one. Now, one of the coolest references in the game is the Dark Ones. Now, the Dark Ones, if you don't know them, are a mutated, highly intelligent group which Artyom almost fully annihilated way back in Metro 2033. However, they actually appear multiple times in the journey. For example, in the Caspian level, if Artyom smokes from the hookah found somewhere in the north of the map, he will actually hallucinate and see a bunch of Dark Ones appearing from one of the televisions there, just going all crazy. You can also see one of the Dark Ones atop of a building in Novosibirsk, not even affected by the radiation because they're made from it. And if your game kind of gets stuck at like 2033 at the main menu, you will see a Dark One also appearing if that's the case, which is really a small and easily missable detail. There's also a reference to Half-Life 1, specifically a dead body with the likeness of Gordon Freeman from those games can be found in the spider-infested bunker back at the Caspian. The developers have actually specifically stated that Half-Life was a major inspiration for them while making the games. There's also a Lord of the Rings reference, specifically can be found in the Moscow level. It features the Eye of Sauron, and it looks like it's been drawn onto a picture of Ostankino Tower from before the war, which is kind of a cool little detail. There's also a reference to Stalker. During the Volga level, when meeting Crest, he will inform Artyom that there are bandits at the depot, and while you actually go there, there's a flag with a skull and the word 30HA, or Russian specifically for zone, which can be found. Now, these are actually references to Stalker Clear Sky, where the bandits established their main base in a railroad depot, and the series is set in a place called the Zone, of course. Alright, so that was the Easter eggs, but now let's dive a little bit into the DLCs. See, during the release of Metro Exodus, an expansion pass was announced, and with it came two fully fledged stories to enjoy. The first one is called The Two Colonels, and the second one is called Sam's Story. Both are specifically centering around different characters from the Aurora and from the Metro universe. The DLCs are both Essentially, the most distilled and perfect versions of the two kinds of experiences you get from the Metro games. The Two Colonels DLC is more linear and claustrophobic, similar to the earliest parts of the franchise with Metro 2033 and Last Light, whereas Sam's story is more open and ripe for exploration, just like the rest of the open world segments found in Metro Exodus, both giving their own unique stories along the way. Starting with the Two Colonels, this DLC has you playing as Colonel Khlebnikov, the father of Kirill, the kid we saved earlier on in the main story. The DLC begins with us arriving with Colonel Miller and him talking to Kirill.
I only got it now. I'll go through this snow-covered graveyard with a sieve, if that's what it takes to find the cure. As for Artyom, he feels his guilt. He wants to atone. Mutant can stop me here. Radiation on the surface is different, though. Frankly, I thought I was buying a one-way ticket for myself going in.
You said you were close, but why do you need the Institute?
You are persistent. We're on a mission, but that's all I can tell. But now, thanks to the green stuff given to us by Kirill, we both have a chance to achieve the goal and survive. So, Private, Artyom left. I'd better get ready to set out too.
What about me, Colonel, sir?
You'll stay here. I'm putting you in charge of communications. I need someone to coordinate the operation. Can you handle the responsibility?
Yes, sir. I can.
Good. By the way, Private, how did you live here before the riots, when there was still enough green stuff to go around?
We did all right. But my dad was always out on a mission or a patrol.
So, you barely saw him?
Oh, no. Dad did his best to come home earlier, especially on the holidays. We even spent the last New Year's together.
We then get to hear the story of his father and see what happened to him in the Metro before our arrival over a year ago. So this first area and segment of the game introduces a brand new weapon, the flamethrower. We can use it to kill off the giant worms along the way and burn off a lot of this tissue. This segment is fun and just reminds me very much of the earliest parts of Metro 2033, and having a new access to a brand new weapon is kind of fun because we never really had a flamethrower before. We've had machine guns and things like that, but never really a straight up flamethrower. Majority of this section though is just getting to know Khlebnikov, his connection to all the people here, and eventually after we've defeated a bunch of the worms, made our way through some really basic puzzles, we can get to the other side. But it doesn't end there though. Once we reach the others, we talk to them, and it's clear that Khlebnikov gets a lot of respect from his subordinates. The people here do look up to him and they do treasure him as an individual. We also run into another person, that being Petrovich. Now Petrovich, alongside us, is offered some green stuff. You guys may remember green stuff is the anti-radiation that you need to use to survive down here, because guess what? Novosibirsk, the city we're in, is essentially the most radiated place on the planet at this point, to our knowledge. It has got 8 times the radiation of metros in Moscow. So we definitely need this anti-rad, but something we notice is that Petrovich doesn't decide to use the injector on himself. He seems to put that green stuff away to keep for later, which is a tad bit suspicious. However, eventually, after a long conversation, we reach the general's office. Walking inside, we have a long conversation with him, and it seems like Khlebnikov, as an individual, has a good relationship with the general. They talk about their sons, duty, and just what's happening in the metro, dealing with uprisings and rioters.
It's good news. People would donate their stock voluntarily if we told them.
Not my decision, Slava. Still, sometimes it makes sense to save the good news for last.
I see. Thanks for telling me.
Remember, it's between us.
You know me. Well, Happy New Year!
Wait a
I
sec.
better go home now.
As a hero of the war on slime and a lone father, you are hereby granted a New Year's present from the command. A 1-month allowance for 2.
Thanks.
I won't hold you any longer unless... How about some tea?
Honestly, a lot of parts of this DLC have just these really emotional moments. You see Khlebnikov interacting with Kirill, with his son, them celebrating New Year's, but then also we snap back to Colonel Miller. we've now gotten another glimpse, and the more the months get closer to the current events of regular Metro's story, we see that things are starting to deteriorate. The general demands that all the regular people submit their green stuff, aka the anti-radiation medicine that they have, to the officers. He wants to do this for whatever reason, we don't really know, and we are one of the people sent out to collect this. And one of the people we go into to deal with is Petrovich. Petrovich says that he's been hoarding this medicine specifically for his daughter and family. And here, the DLC gives you one chance to make a decision. You can either punish Petrovich and take his anti-radiation from him, or you can let him keep the green stuff. And this will give only two options. Either you save him and he's able to save his granddaughter, or you hear the death of his entire family.
If it isn't the Colonel. Are you ready to face your maker?
It's honestly a dark moment, and what follows from here is a segment where we, as part of the OSCOM unit, basically the military that controls this place, we have to together fight our way through hordes of rioters. We have to fight through all of them, one by one, and eventually we discover that this was all planned by one man. The general, the same man that we put our trust into and that we related with. It was his fault. He wanted to hoard all of the green stuff for himself. He wanted to hoard all of it for, well, the higher-ups, for the rich people of the Metro, so to say, which is really messed up. But that's the thing. It came at the cost of everyone else. In the end, the general takes his own life, realizing there's just nothing to work for. It's all futile. And beyond that, luckily, Kirill and Khlebnikov have both made it out, but while out looking for more green stuff, he reaches a bunker, and he tells Kirill that he'll report back in soon. However, as he tries to enter the base, something horrible happens. The bunker should hold some map data, the similar sort of satellite data that we were looking for in the main story of Metro Exodus. It's a way for us to figure out where Kirill and Khlebnikov could go to a safe place to live. However, in the process of trying to find this, he has to fight past a bunch of worms, monsters, and things beyond our comprehension. At one point, even fighting off one of the blind ones, or librarians, whichever way you want to call them. They're essentially blind and crazy monsters, which we've already encountered before. However, even after finding the data, Khlebnikov is tired. His one serum bottle has broken. He doesn't have any of the green stuff left, and radiation is starting to take its toll. He just needs a break. And that's it. Miller finds him. Miller says the way he feels and shares a moment with the dead colonel. Khlebnikov is gone. And unfortunately, we also learn that the last bit of anti-radiation that Miller had is what he uses on Artyom to save him. He sacrifices himself for, well, the young one, the same way Khlebnikov essentially gave his life to find a future for his son. Both colonels pass away, and holy shit, is this DLC emotional. This was the perfect DLC for this game. It hands down does a fantastic job. There's no way to describe it besides saying that it's just amazing. It was perfect. It gave context for what was happening to Miller in this time, where he was, what he was up to, but also gives context for what happened in Novosibirsk. And honestly, I always wanted to know. Novosibirsk is the level that sort of has the least amount of details to it, but still tells one of the most interesting stories. A story most similar to that of Metro 2033. A story of people fighting people, even when the world is trying to kill them all at the same time. It's truly the perfect Metro DLC that you could get, and I think it does a great job. If you guys disagree, you could always let me know. But there is one more DLC we need to talk about, that being Sam's story. Now, Sam's story is a bit different. Unlike the two Colonels, which is linear, Sam's story is open world, and as the name says, it centers specifically around Sam. Sam, of course, being the one American soldier amongst the rest of the crew. Now, I already mentioned way back at the beginning of this video in the Volga that we will learn a bit more about Sam eventually. Well, you see, Sam has a father, and apparently he's in San Francisco or San Diego. They're not exactly 100% on that part, I'm not really sure, but his father is there, and well, Sam still hopes he's alive. He really wants to go and see him, as he's just been stuck in Russia for the last 20 years since the World War III started. And well, he decides to depart from the Aurora, making his way through the countryside and all the way over to the coast of Russia, specifically the East Coast. As Sam sets us on his journey, he leaves the others from Lake Baikal and instead parts ways. Now, on this journey of his, he goes through a lot of different places. He actually ends up setting off in Saul's van, the van that we picked up much earlier in the game back in the Caspian. Eventually, he makes it to the city of Vladivostok on the East Coast. Here, however, he abandons a tractor that he had picked up along the way and instead just heads inside of the city. He is also running into a bunch of problems along the way. For example, he runs into a captain that's being captured by a bunch of bandits. This guy is Eduard Baranov, or Ed for short. He is dealing with some bandits in the city, and well, we get a short confrontation with him before we gotta fight off some demons. The next section of the game is a little bit odd. We essentially end up in a very cool, actually, I'm not gonna lie, very cool fist fight before being knocked out by the bandits and being taken to a nuclear submarine. It turns out that the man living in this nuclear submarine is actually an American, the only other American that we have run into, and his name is Tom. Well, here's the thing. Tom needs something from us. He talks to us and tells us that, hey, he kind of wants to use this submarine to essentially control the world. But to do that, he needs some of the specific fuel that's needed for the reactor. The only person that knows the location of this fuel would be the captain, specifically Ed. And so he tasks us with something. Go find Ed and bring him over. And the rest of the game now and the rest of this DLC is mostly you making your way around this desolate version and sort of interesting location of Vladivostok. Majority of it is actually set specifically on water, so you're going to be running through a lot of boats and stuff like that to deal with this place. It's sort of interesting, but Ed as a character, the, captain, is a really cool guy. Once you've met up with him later and save him and also deal with a bunch of bandits for him, he will take you to his home and base. And there is this really cool segment together with him where both him and Sam get totally fucking wasted, and I love this. So I'll just let you watch the entire thing because I just love this part of the game. This actual segment was so funny.
Not bad at all.
Okay, let's go check the generator.
Are you sure?
When my exo-bird sings and shouts, where the hell is my tape machine? I think I got this. Pull that lever, Sam. Shit, I ain't got it. Oh! Had we had some music?
Amen to that.
Hey, you! What the?
I definitely got it now. Start it, Sam.
Now we're talking.
Let there be lights.
Wait. What the?
By the way, care to tell me your story?
Are you sure?
Let's drink. Come on, Sam. I'm telling you, Sam, you're a nice guy, but you lack respect. Respect of your elders. I mean, why aren't you drinking?
Hey, Ed! I'm here.
You are? There too? Weird. I need a drink.
So now, after waking up the next morning, Baranov, or Ed, explains his plan to Sam. Basically, the nuclear control rods needed to repair the submarine are in a bunker beneath a Russian Navy command building. However, to get into the bunker, because it's radioactive, we need special suits. To get those, we need to go to a fire depot in the city's upper marsh that had a hazmat suit in case of a fire aboard a nuclear submarine. So, the rest of the game consists of you getting your hands on that and then trying to retrieve these nuclear like rods that we specifically need. Now, even though this section is supposed to be, in this DLC, supposed to be open world, it did at times feel like it was relatively linear, and one big gripe I had with both DLCs, but more so the second one, is massive performance issues. I had multiple crashes and I had to use other different pieces of footage here to match everything together because I could barely record this section of the game. There'd be so many bugs and glitches that would happen, especially in the open world segments. But yeah, overall though, what ends up happening is that you get two different possible endings. You can either give the nuclear rods and whatnot to Tom, or you can choose not to do it. If you choose not to do it and instead blow up the submarine, then Tom does not achieve his goal. But if you do it the other way, you actually do give him to them, well, then Ed's going to be pissed at you. So it's either one of those two options. And so, ladies and gentlemen, my conclusion is this. Metro Exodus is not the same as Metro 2033. I mean, naturally it is, and it's a different game, it's a sequel, but it is a good sequel. Now, one of the things I hate about open world games is that feeling of having too much shit to do, and Metro Exodus is the opposite of that. I always wanted to do more, I wanted to discover new things, and I love when games do that naturally rather than forcing it on you. Keep in mind, Metro started as a linear game, and Metro continued being a linear game for 2 entire sets of games, but after that, they decided to go in a different path. And Metro does this thing where it's able to keep the game linear and open at the same time without feeling too much like one or the other, by building up interesting characters, by building up interesting locations and worlds and monsters and everything. The combination of all those brings out the best of this franchise. And I think that for once, they were able to do that so well. They were able to finally give us a Metro game that does both the linear storytelling and open world in such a neat manner. And that's the end of the video, guys. That's my conclusion. Thank you all for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you guys want to see more videos. And also, if you want to see more content from me, then feel free to become a channel member if you want to. I'll see you guys the next time.
Silent Hill 2 remake. It is coming next. Subscribe for it.